Chapter 3088. No, Miju screamed, as if he had lost his parents, but also as if he had gone crazy. Taking revenge on Chong Yan's group of 5 had become her obsession. She had thought about it countless times, and she had thought about how she would kill them one by one. However, being able to take 7 steps without dying was no joke. It was only now that she finally had the ability to slaughter 7 steps at will. However, Poyu was killed by Ling Han. That made her heart ache. "You bastard, I'll tear you to shreds." Miju attacked with his full strength, wanting to blast Ling Han into pieces. Ehe. Ling Han smiled faintly. Everything had been under Annihilation's control. Ren Kuang Luan, a 2th-generation Great Devil, and Lin Luo, Chong Yan, and other 7th-step supreme martial artists had all become her pawns, being played in the palm of her hand. "Now it's no longer up to you." Ling Han stared at Half Moon and charged towards him. Half Moon and the other 2 supreme beings had already begun to flee. But now that there was no longer any intrinsic power for them to draw and use, they could only rely on their own power to display their might, which greatly affected their speed. When it came to power, who could compare to Ling Han? With just a single step, he had already caught up to Half Moon, reaching out to grab her. "How dare you!" Extermination roared angrily and chased after him. But will she make it in time? Ling Han stretched out his hand, and Half Moon fell into his hand. "Old bastard, do you regret it or not?" Half Moon gritted his teeth. He had already seen it before. Poyu said that he would die if he regretted it. Therefore, he had to grit his teeth, and not relent no matter what. Regretless. Ling Han exerted more force in his hand, and under the incomparable pressure, Half Moon's bones cracked. His face swelled up to a purplish-red color, and he felt extremely uncomfortable. Miju, on the other hand, stopped. She knew that it was impossible for her to snatch him away from Ling Han. So she had her eyes on Big Dipper and Xianyu. Although she couldn't get a perfect revenge, it was still better than not killing a single one of them, right? She flew toward the Big Dipper. 7-star and Xianyu didn't know how to describe what they were feeling right now. A dignified 7th-step supremacy had actually fallen to the state of being hunted down by others. It was really too sad. 7 steps, they were 7 steps, the greatest in the world. Yellow Sand roared madly and waved its tentacles to meet the attack. It also hated extinction the most, so even though it knew it was no match for it, it still came forward to stop it. Scram! Annihilation chopped down with her hand, and Frenzy was instantly sent flying. Golden blood spurted out as another tentacle was chopped off. But Frenzy was laughing, because Ling Han had already caught up and intercepted extinction. Ling Han shook his head in his heart. This Kuang extermination was really stupid. Even without its obstruction, he could easily catch up to extermination, because he had obtained 90% of the Void's power. He was absolutely invincible. Forget it, he didn't need to feel heartache. "Do you regret?" Ling Han blocked extinction while also suppressing Half Moon. His terrifying power wasn't something a 7th-step physique could resist, causing Half Moon to howl in pain. He persisted for a long time before finally saying, "Regret, I regret it." Firstly, he really couldn't hold on any longer. He had a feeling that death was better than living, and he might as well beg for a good death. Secondly, these were indeed heartfelt words. He regretted listening to Annihilation, regretted not using his full strength to kill the weak Ling Han at that time. "Fine, then go on your way." Ling Han forcefully squeezed and paw. Half Moon also turned into a bloody mist. "Ling Han! Ling Han! Ling Han!" Annihilation roared loudly, her eyes spewing flames of fury, reaching an extreme level. "What are you shouting for? It's not your turn yet," Ling Han said indifferently. He looked toward Xianyu and 7-star. Who should it be next? Being swept by his gaze, Xianyu and 7-star couldn't help but feel a sense of sorrow, as well as endless despair. Annihilation had also fallen into a berserk state. She panted heavily, her face twisted, her beauty completely gone. She suddenly stared at Frenzy, her eyes shining. If she killed it and plundered its power, then she would definitely win against Ling Han, who had originally been evenly matched. Yes, that was how it was. She let out a long howl and charged toward Frenzy. An ordinary 7th step was useless. Its power was not even a millionth of hers, So what was the use of plundering it? Ling Han smiled, and his figure scuttled out. He had actually moved later but arrived first. He grabbed one of Frenzy's tentacles, and then fiercely flung it out. Bang! Frenzy instantly turned into a beam of flowing light, shooting toward the endless void. It's not your turn yet. Line up and wait for me, Ling Han said. His figure twisted, and he charged toward 7 Star. 7 Star also stopped running. He knew that Ling Han was already so strong that he could insta-kill the heavens and earth. I regret it, he said directly. Rather than being ravaged and then killed, it was better to beg for a good death. Bang! Ling Han punched out, mercilessly blasting 7 Star apart. Since he had betrayed them, then he had to be prepared to die. Ling Han looked at Xianyu again. His killing intent did not decrease, because he had killed 3 Supremes. Instead, it had become even sharper. Xianyu also accepted his fate, and he closed his eyes. What I regret the most is listening to that bitch's words. Also, I didn't take the chance to kill you. Unrepentant. Ling Han snorted coldly. He punched out and bang, Xianyu was also killed. At this point, all the Supremes of the previous origin world were dead. Oh no, strictly speaking, there was still Extinction and Frenzy. They had both walked over from the previous origin world. Golden Silkworm and Myriad Shadows trembled. In front of Ling Han, the 7th step was like a toy. He could kill them with the raise of his hand. They had only broken through to the 7th step not long ago, and they had not enjoyed such prestige. They did not want to die at all. What they were afraid of happened. Ling Han had already set his gaze on them. What else do you have to say? Ling Han asked indifferently. What else could they say? Was there any use in saying regret now? Poyu and the others had all been killed. Myriad Shadow's first reaction was to flee. This had already become his normal reaction when facing Ling Han. But now, he could not move his legs at all. He felt his entire body was powerless, and he could not move at all. Golden Silkworm gritted his teeth, and knelt in front of Ling Han. Greetings, master. Ling Han was startled, and only then did he remember that he had suppressed Golden Silkworm when he was only at the 5th step. He had wanted to take in a 7th step servant, but Golden Silkworm had run away, and he had not thought about this matter again. Now that Golden Silkworm was calling himself a servant, it clearly wanted to exchange for its life. I don't need a dog servant like you, Ling Han said. There was a price to pay for betrayal. How could he be fooled by kneeling and losing his dignity? He stretched out his hands and made a grabbing motion. Golden Silkworm and Myriad Shadows landed in his hands. 7th step? Haha, they were truly trash now. Since you have nothing to say, then die. Ling Han's arm shook. Bang bang. The 2 Supremes immediately turned into a rain of blood. 8. Chapter 3089. Fall in love with you. Extinction's chest rose and fell rapidly. She was angry, extremely angry. Since Ling Han was the one who had stolen and killed her, then she would kill. She charged at Lin Luo and the others. Ling Han snorted, and his figure flashed, blocking in front of Extinction. Your opponent is me, he said calmly. Pong! With a punch, Extinction was sent flying by him. What? Extinction's beautiful face paled. In this blow, she realized that her power was much inferior to Ling Han's. Damned ladyboy, don't disgust me. Ling Han had goosebumps. When he thought of Extinction's flirtatious appearance before, all that was left was disgust. In her bones, Extinction was a man, and she was celestial venerable yellow sand. Extinction screamed. In her opinion, so what if she was a man or a woman? She had already reached the 7th step, so what was the point of caring about gender? But being insulted by Ling Han like this, she really could not bear it. However, she did not engage in a fierce battle with Ling Han. Instead, her figure moved, and she chased after the place where Frenzy had disappeared. Only by killing Frenzy and plundering his power would she be able to compete with Ling Han. Of course, she was overthinking, but this was the only solution she could think of. Xiao! She unleashed a terrifying power, and her slender figure moved at an indescribable speed. She chased after Frenzy while searching for life fluctuations. There was only emptiness here now. There were no more energy storms, so the aura of life could not be concealed. Even the slightest hint of it was extremely obvious. Extinction chased after Frenzy, moving faster and faster. In less than half a day, Frenzy's figure appeared in front of her. 2 of his tentacles had been severed, and he looked rather miserable. Frenzy had now fallen from the strongest level, but he was still unbelievably strong. He could still suppress Lin Luo and the other celestial venerables by himself. Die! Extinction charged over, her fingers like claws clawing at Frenzy. Frenzy let out a loud roar and waved his tentacles to attack. Pung! Frenzy was at a great disadvantage in this blow. Compared to Extinction, he was much weaker, and one of his tentacles was severed. Don't kill it. It's mine too. Ling Han's voice rang out. He was calm and unruffled in the midst of chaos, like a person protecting his food, warning others not to snatch his food. The reborn Special Forces Annihilation gritted her teeth. She attacked crazily. If she did not kill Insanity and use its power, she would not be able to suppress Ling Han. And if she could not suppress Ling Han, she would not be able to leave this space. She could only go crazy in this void and desolation. Ling Han also made a move. How could he let Extermination kill Frenzy? If he wanted to kill them, he would have to do it himself. He easily blocked Extinction with one hand, his eyes fixed on Frenzy. Frenzy's remaining 5 tentacles fluttered lightly. Facing Ling Han, it felt an unprecedented chill. Its figure moved, and it took the initiative to pounce. However, its target was actually not Ling Han, but rather Extermination. Courting death? Even Ling Han did not expect this. He was killed by Frenzy and charged at Extinction. Not bad, not bad. You're going to die anyway, so why not give your power to me? At least I'm still your previous life's body. Extinction laughed loudly. Her slender hand reached out, and it directly penetrated Frenzy's head. Boom! Frenzy's 5 tentacles surged wildly, and its golden body was rapidly dimming. Its energy was rapidly draining, and it was constantly being plundered by Extinction. Ling Han wanted to stop it, but on second thought, he decided not to. In reality, he alone had absorbed about 90% of the Void's power. The remaining power was divided between Frenzy and Extinction, and among them, Extinction had taken about 90%. Thus, whether Frenzy's power was absorbed by Extinction or not was not affected at all. He would let her rejoice for nothing. Ling Han watched from the sidelines. Very soon, Mia Extermination would find out that what she was facing was an insurmountable mountain. Very soon, Frenzy's golden body turned silver, then white, and finally black, as if it was regressing. This process was very fast. Extinction shook lightly, and Frenzy turned into flying ash, completely disappearing. The great villain that had once harmed 2 generations of the origin world was gone just like that. Xiao. Lin Luo and the others also rushed over, and just happened to see this final scene, and could not help but be filled with emotion. Ling Han! Extinction shouted loudly. After absorbing Frenzy's power, her power increased by more than 10%, making her full of confidence that it was enough to suppress Ling Han. At their level, not to mention 10% increase in power. Even 10% was shocking, and could even change the situation of the battle. Yexo's blood dance. I'm not deaf, you don't have to shout so loudly, Ling Han said calmly. He even dug his ears, appearing indifferent. I want you, Miju said, but before the word die could leave her mouth she was stunned. Then she suddenly hugged her head. Frenzy, you're really haunting me. I've already destroyed your physical body, but you still entered my sea of consciousness with your divine soul. Ling Han's expression darkened slightly. This, I want you was not clearly stated, but it was very ambiguous, and the one who said it was a damn transvestite. Just thinking about it made him feel disgusted. You want to fight with me for the control of this body? You're really dreaming. Extinction roared. Get out! Get out! But then Extinction said, this body was originally mine. Even if you refined it, it is still more compatible with my soul. I am the master of this body. Get lost, I've planned for so many years, and this is the result today. You want to reap the fruits of my labor? Winner takes all. Why do you have so much nonsense to say? Extinction seemed to be talking to herself, but Ling Han, Lin Luo, and the others all knew that this was actually the 2 souls of Extinction and Frenzy fighting for the control of this body. It seemed a little confusing to say it this way. Since Frenzy's physical body had been destroyed and returned to the original body, it was better to call her Extinction. And Extinction was actually heavenly venerable yellow sand. The two souls were fighting, and a strange scene appeared. On Extinction's neck, another head actually grew. You. The original head shouted harshly. It represented yellow sand, of course. Haha, this is my body. Even after being refined by you for so many years, I can still get half of the control, the new head said. This was naturally Frenzy, which was also the earliest version of Extinction. Get out! Chapter 3091. Miju's spirit was very powerful. Now, it was the fusion of two souls, and the former Heavenly Lord Yellow Sand was even more impressive. He had fused the souls of countless living beings in the previous origin world. Even if more than 90% of the souls had been turned into ashes in the collapse of the origin world, even if only 1% remained, when fused into one person's body, it was still indescribably powerful. Therefore, Miju was sufficiently confident that she could compete with Ling Han for control of her body, even if it was Ling Han's body. Pung! With a heavy punch, Miju's spirit was immediately shattered, but these fragments entered Ling Han's body and gathered toward his spiritual sea. Every time a fragment gathered, Miju's spirit would become slightly stronger. When it arrived at Ling Han's spiritual sea, she had also taken human form. Being shattered by Ling Han's punch was naturally a heavy blow to Miju's spirit. Now there was less than 1% of its strength left, but this was enough. It was far more than 10,000 times stronger than an ordinary Step 7. Outside, Miju's physical body had no spirit to control it, so it naturally could not resist. It was just blown up by Ling Han's punch. Endless energy surged and turned into rolling waves. Ling Han's body automatically absorbed this incomparably vigorous energy. If he finished absorbing it, it would be equivalent to the energy of the entire void and the entire origin world gathering in his body. This was endless power. However, Lin Luo and the others were nervous. Miju's spirit had not yet been destroyed, and it had still entered Ling Han's body. If she took control of Ling Han's body, then all the good fortune would be hers. Ling Han, you must hold on. You can't fall at this last step. In the spiritual sea, Miju strode forward, heading straight for the core of the spiritual sea. She wanted to find Ling Han's spirit and kill it. Then, she could easily plunder Ling Han's physical body. Look for me. Ling Han appeared, his soul also in human form. He stood there with his hands clasped behind his back, and he didn't seem nervous at all. Extermination looked at Ling Han and showed a cold smile. You are too conceited. Although your physical body is invincible, in terms of the strength of your soul, you can't possibly compare to me, no matter how hard you try. You are destined to be killed by me, and this body of yours will become my new physical body to head to a new world. And all of this is not fated with you. Ling Han shook his head. You talk too much and waste my time. So hurry up and disappear for me. He took the initiative to attack, and threw a punch at Extinction. If you fight me here, your own strength won't be of any use. Miju cackled and sent a palm strike at Ling Han. Bam! This strike was solid, but it did not set off any waves. This was a confrontation of divine senses. But Extinction's expression changed drastically, and she was immediately sent flying. Her body was torn apart and turned into countless pieces. Fortunately, this was only a soul. Extinction's body quickly reassembled and returned to its original state, but it was obvious that her body size had shrunk. This attack had caused great harm to her. How can your soul be stronger than mine? Her face was full of disbelief. Ling Han smiled faintly. You fused with many souls from the previous Yuan world, and thought you were very powerful, right? But you didn't expect that the number of planes in my body now far exceeds the sum of the two Yuan worlds. Moreover, they are all of a very high level, and they have also evolved living beings. All living beings have their own will. How can you compete with these combined wills? Even if Extinction's soul was not injured, and she had fused with all the souls in the collapse of the Yuan world, it was still impossible for her to compare with Ling Han, not to mention that she had been discounted several times. If she could still be stronger than Ling Han, then that would be unreasonable. Now get out of my body. Ling Han charged over and punched out. Pung! Extinction was instantly sent flying. Her figure dimmed, and she was once again heavily injured. You deliberately allowed me to invade your mind. That way, you would be able to easily destroy my physical body and obtain all of my energy. Realization dawned upon extermination. With the strength of Ling Han's divine sense, it was impossible for her to invade his mind. So this was Ling Han deliberately tricking her. Pung pung pung, pung pung pung. Under the continuous attacks, Ling Ju could only retreat step by step. Finally, she was blasted out of the consciousness and driven out of Ling Han's body, turning into a flickering ball of light. Now her physical body had been destroyed, and her remnant soul was like duckweed without a root. Extinction was unwilling to die. She looked at Lin Luo and the others, wanting to snatch another physical body. You think too much, Ling Han said. He punched out and pung, Extinction's soul was instantly shattered. Boom! A shockwave spread out, spreading throughout the entire void. A fierce person of a generation had finally fallen, completely vanishing from this world. One had to admit that Extinction was an incomparably powerful existence. Unfortunately, she insisted on standing on the opposite side of Ling Han. Lin Luo and the others all watched. Right now, Ling Han was absorbing Extinction's boundless energy. When Ling Han completed this step, he would have the ability to destroy this world. Now the void was already dead, and it was impossible for the origin world to be reborn. They could only hope that Ling Han would open the door to a new world. Otherwise, although they wouldn't die, it would be worse than death. Boundless life, boundless loneliness, and boundless silence. After 100,000 years, Ling Han suddenly opened his eyes. A bright light flashed past like a bolt of lightning. He casually moved his arms and legs, and instantly, a terrifying power surged. It was as if the void was unable to bear it, and was about to shatter. Ling Han, Lin Luo and the others all said. 100,000 years was naturally nothing to a seventh-step supreme being. There was an end to this kind of waiting. If Ling Han told them that he couldn't break through this world, under the endless despair, even Lin Luo and the others would feel that a day was like a year. In the end they would go crazy. Ling Han nodded, and looked at everyone one by one. Now, I have enough power to open that door, and lead to another new world. However, I don't know what the situation is like there. Everyone, are you going or staying? Unsurprisingly, Lin Luo and the others all indicated that they would go. If they stayed, so what if they had eternal life? This kind of loneliness was unbearable. Alright, then I'll open this door. Ling Han arrived at the place where the door of light had appeared. He circulated all his power and punched out. Bang! The void trembled, and a passageway was forcibly smashed open. Everyone please. Ling Han turned around and revealed a smile. At this point the first part of Path of God has ended. All the bosses have been defeated, and the time is almost the end of June. It's about the same progress as I expected. Next, it's Ling Han's adventure in the new world. This is the content of the second part. Friends who like him can continue to chase after him. There's no need to wait. It's the next chapter. Friends who are tired of chasing after him can also rest, because this is the grand ending. Of course, I definitely hope that everyone can continue to follow him. Then, let's meet again in the next chapter. Chapter 3092. Lin Luo and the others nodded. I'll go first. Lin Luo walked out, wanting to be the vanguard. This was actually a very risky thing to do. Who knew what kind of dangers were lurking outside? Perhaps there were as many 8 steps as there were dogs, and a casual punch could kill a 7th-step cultivator. What if they were to walk out so recklessly and get killed with a single slap? Without waiting for Ling Han to stop him, Lin Luo took the lead. Ling Han knew that this was Lin Luo deliberately stepping on a landmine for him. If there was really any danger, then he could be prepared. However, although Lin Luo rushed out first, after walking through the door, he found it difficult to move. After only 5 steps he stopped. Then the door of light seemed to be extremely elastic, and with a bang, Lin Luo bounced back. To pass through this door, endless power is needed. Lin Luo smiled bitterly. He had wanted to test the risks for Ling Han, But he didn't expect that he couldn't even do this. Bai Fan, Xi and Fu, and the others tried one by one, but they couldn't pass through. Opening the door required the energy of the entire void, so passing through it was probably the same. Ling Han thought for a moment, then said, "Everyone, you'd better enter the plane in my body first. Otherwise, I'm worried that after going out, this door will close, and I won't be able to open it again." Yes. Everyone nodded. Ling Han moved, taking everyone into his body. Anyway, he had already derived a super high-class plane of the million level, which was far more powerful than the Yuan world of the past. It was enough to bear these 7 steps. Now, he was the only one left in the vast void. He looked at the door of light, then looked behind him. A resolute expression appeared on his face, and he suddenly turned back and strode forward. Wang, he entered the door of light. Instantly, endless resistance attacked him, wanting to push him back. No wonder Lin Luo and the others couldn't pass through this door. Such resistance was really strong. However, for Ling Han, who had the power of the entire void, this was still not an obstacle. Ling Han strode forward, and under the vigorous vibrations of power, the force that could stop 7 steps seemed insignificant. He went deeper, and behind this door of light was a tunnel that seemed to have a life of its own, wriggling. Hung behind him, the void was collapsing. The space he had always lived in was about to disappear. Now there was no turning back. He could only move forward. Ling Han walked faster and faster. He was determined. Since he had made up his mind, he would not hesitate. Forward, forward, forward. He wanted to know if there really was a big world outside of this little puddle. Hung long, long. The space behind him collapsed, even affecting the passageway. The door of light suddenly shattered. Pung, pung, pung. The entire passageway also began to collapse, and it was rapidly spreading toward him. His speed was even faster than Ling Han's. Damn. Ling Han didn't know how powerful the destructive power of this collapse was. Perhaps it could even injure his physical body? Therefore, it was better not to be caught. He sped up, as fast as lightning, and as fast as flying. However, after running for almost an hour, Ling Han suddenly realized that there was no road ahead. "There's no way out," Ling Han roared and raised his fist. He gathered all of his strength and punched forward. Pung! How powerful was his strength? Quang! The front instantly shattered, no matter what it was. A wave of light assaulted him, catching him off guard. He immediately closed his eyes. Pung! He fell to the ground. Haha, the divine stone has appeared. The divine stone has appeared. A voice rang out beside Ling Han, filled with incomparable joy. Ling Han was stunned at first, and then a strange feeling arose in him. He clearly did not understand the other party's language, so why did he understand the meaning of this person's words? He wanted to get up, but he discovered that he was incomparably weak. He actually did not even have the strength to get up. This surprised Ling Han, and even caused him to feel a trace of fear. He had merged with the power of the entire void. How powerful was that? Yet he could not even stand up. Ling Han did his best to open his eyes, and turned his head to look. He saw an elder walking toward him. He was short and had a head full of messy hair. His face was filled with excitement and a crazy smile. At this moment, Ling Han felt that he was incomparably weak, as if he was an ordinary person, or even weaker than an ordinary person. His first reaction was to release Lin Luo and the others from his body. He didn't know why he was exhausted, but Lin Luo and the others were at the 7th step and could protect him. However, he immediately found that he could not release them at all. What was going on? What was going on? The elder walked over and flipped Ling Han over. He sized him up and said, "The divine stone has shattered, and a godchild has appeared. He has descended upon my ancient Tao sect. This is a Tao child bestowed by the heavens, and it indicates that my sect will rise in the upcoming great era." What was this old man talking about? What divine stone godchild was he talking about him? Don't move, don't move. The old man pressed down on Ling Han with great force, making it so that Ling Han could not move at all. You have just been born, and have used up all of your power. You are very weak right now. Can you understand this, old man? The old man looked at Ling Han with great anticipation. Ling Han finally flipped over. He looked behind him. There were a great many stone fragments there, and one of them was extremely huge. Judging from this was originally a large stone that was close to a sphere. Now that the stone had shattered, the stone fragments at the bottom were still there. Combined with the old man's words, Ling Han had a guess in his heart. He had just broken out from this stone. Was this possible? The origin world and the endless void were all inside this stone. Ling Han was so shocked that he couldn't speak. No wonder Annihilation and Madness had always said that they lived in a small puddle. In terms of size, this was not even a small puddle. He nodded at the old man. I understand. You can understand. But this old man doesn't understand what you're saying. The old man said. This old man is really curious. More than 30 years ago, the sect master brought back the divine stone and said that according to ancient records, it would give birth to a supreme spirit embryo. It's been more than 30 years. This old man has finally waited. The old man was very excited, as if he had picked up a big treasure. Ling Han's mind was filled with disbelief. He had worked hard in the origin world and fought to become the strongest, but he had only snatched the right to be born. Where was his supreme power? Ling Han was dazed, and his mind was completely blank. This was like a person who had become a millionaire through hard work. But suddenly, without any reason, he had become a penniless beggar. How could this kind of disparity be easily accepted? He didn't even realize how he had been carried away. He entered a house and was then in a daze. It seemed that many people were going in and out, saying something, but it was too far away for him to hear a word. However, after only 2 days, Ling Han pulled himself together. As long as he was still alive, he could start all over again. Moreover, there were still countless people living in those planes inside his body, and he had shouldered far, far too much. He had to pull himself together. Chapter 3093. Ling Han crawled to his feet. He discovered that he was now wearing a set of sackcloth clothes. He didn't know who had changed them for him. He slowly got down and planted his feet on the ground. He wanted to stand up, but he almost fell head first onto the ground. Damn, this kind of powerlessness made him want to die. Ling Han was gloomy. How awesome had he been in the past? He had swept through all the ferocious beasts of all ages, and could easily destroy stars and swallow the heavens. But now, he actually didn't even have the strength to stand up. This was too depressing. Young master, you're awake. A woman's voice rang out. Ling Han turned to see that it was a green-clothed maidservant. She looked quite sweet, and could barely be called a beauty. He asked, Who are you? Young master, I don't understand what you're saying, said the maidservant. However, she was quite smart and quickly said, This servant is called Huan Shui. I'm here to take care of young master's daily needs. Ling Han nodded and gestured to Huan Shui, asking her to teach him how to speak. He could understand her words, so learning to speak was actually quite simple. In just half a day, Ling Han had more or less grasped this world's language. Creak. The door opened and sunlight poured in. A tall man appeared in the doorway, but because the sunlight was too blinding, it was impossible to see his face. He could only tell that he was a very tall man. Greetings, young masterly. Huan Shui hurriedly bowed. Only then did the man walk in. His appearance could be seen clearly. He was a young man in his early 20s. He was very handsome, and his every movement seemed to contain a powerful sense of power. I'm Li Zhongdan. The young man smiled, seeming very cultured and refined. After resting for 2 days, you can finally get up. That's great news. He seemed to be very concerned about Ling Han, but Ling Han had been through a lot. He could clearly see the contempt and enmity hidden deep within the young man's eyes. What a hypocrite, Ling Han said in his heart. He deliberately pretended not to understand and spouted nonsense. In any case, the other party would not understand. Li Zhongdan sat for a while, and then left. Her face was full of smiles, as if she didn't mind at all. Where did this guy come from? Ling Han asked Huan Shui. Huan Shui immediately revealed a look of worship. Young Master Li is the most outstanding disciple of our ancient Dao sect. You don't know, but young Master Li is only 21 years old, but he has already opened 9 meridians. His strength is shocking. Clear the meridians. Ling Han had the urge to laugh out loud. This sounded like the initial stage of martial art. How could it be called amazing strength? However, he immediately sighed. He could barely even stand now. In comparison, he could only be considered a baby. Well, he had just been born from the god's stone. If he wasn't a baby, what else could he be? But judging from his size, he was a supergiant baby. What is this place? Ling Han was curious. What kind of world had he entered? Call Snow was only a maidservant, so she didn't know much either. She told Ling Han everything in full detail. This was the ancient Dao sect, a place for cultivating martial art. The sect master was called Sun Jianfang, and it was said that he was more than 100 years old. He was one of the first people to stand out after the world changed. And he was now an expert that looked down on the world. In this great era, everyone desired to cultivate and obtain strength. However, the path of cultivation was too difficult. For example, Huan Xue didn't have any talent in martial art, so she could only be a maid and rely on the protection of the ancient Dao sect. Why? Because after the world changed, the wild beasts that could only be prey suddenly evolved and took over a large amount of human territory. This caused the spirit of all creatures to become prey. Chapter 3095. Ancient Dao Sect, Li Zhongdan's courtyard. Senior brother Li, something bad has happened. I heard that the sect leader intends to make Ling Han a Taoist. A young man rushed in, his face full of anger. Li Zhongdan was practicing his fist technique, but he didn't change at all when he heard that. He continued to practice and said indifferently, "Don't panic. The sky hasn't collapsed yet." "How come it hasn't collapsed yet?" asked the young man anxiously. "Elder brother Li, you should be the Tao child of our sect. You should continue the legacy of the sect leader. You should travel the world on behalf of the sect leader." Who does that Ling Han think he is? He doesn't have a father or a mother. He popped out of a rock. I don't even know if he's a human or a demon. How can we let such a person be our Tao child? Senior brother Li, you started practicing fist techniques at the age of 11. You're 21 years old now, and you've already opened 9 meridians in your body. Even senior brothers who are much older than you usually only have 6 meridians opened. As long as you open another meridian, you can become an elder of the sect. That Ling Han can't even compare to you. If he wants to be a Tao child, I'll be the first to object. The young man said angrily, as if Ling Han had snatched his position as the Tao child. Li Zhongdan was still calm as he punched out. After opening 9 meridians, no matter where he was in the ancient Tao sect, he was qualified to be called an expert. "Tongfeng, that's just a rumor," he said coolly. "Besides, even the esteemed sect leader can't just ignore everyone's objections and rashly appoint someone as Tao child." The young man's surname was Zheng, and his name was Zheng Tongfeng. He was 1 year younger than elder brother Li, and had opened 4 meridians. His aptitude could only be considered average. He looked at Li Zhongdan and was influenced by her, gradually calming down. But senior apprentice brother Li, everyone is spreading the word now. If we let them do as they please, who knows, they might really get what they want in the future. He was still worried. Li Zhongdan laughed. "Don't worry, there's plenty of time. If you want to be a Tao child, you'll naturally have to pass the test. You can't be someone with a corrupt character." Senior apprentice brother Li means. Zheng Tongfeng suddenly understood, and didn't say anything more. If one wanted to be a Taoist, not only did one have to have talent in martial art, but they also had to have a good moral character. However, if Ling Han committed a crime, would he still be qualified to be a Taoist? Li Zhongdan continued punching. He had to clear the 10th Tao as soon as possible. Only then could he truly establish himself in this great world. Otherwise, he would only be considered a minor character. As for Ling Han first flipped through the fist manual. Although his current strength had fallen to rock bottom, his comprehension had not changed at all. He only needed to flip through the fist manual once to understand it. It's a pity that I can't apply the martial arts I've mastered before. Otherwise, I wouldn't need to practice such shallow martial arts, Ling Han murmured. Although this was a very shallow fist technique, it conformed to a certain rule of this world. Practicing it could strengthen one's body and give one the power to break stones and pillars. Ling Han practiced in the courtyard. After this practice, he immediately realized that he was biting off more than he could chew. Understanding was one thing, but being able to do it was another. This fist technique was very tricky. It had to twist the body, many of which violated the structure of the human body. Forcefully twisting was not only painful, but also impossible to reach at certain angles. If it was in the past, it would be a piece of cake for Ling Han. His body could twist at will, but now he was just an ordinary person. He stopped, and the energy immediately disappeared. However, Ling Han had a feeling that his body seemed to be a little stronger. It was very weak, but Ling Han's divine sense was very sharp. He could determine that it was not his illusion. This was unbelievable. Not only did he find the meridian, but he also guided the energy to flow in it. According to Sun Jianfang, the human body had a total of 12 meridians, known as the 12 principal meridians. But since there were already diagrams, why did so many people still fail to open the path of cultivation? That was because the meridians were not blood vessels or bones. Even if a person was cut open, they would not be able to see or touch it. The diagrams only showed that the meridians were nearby. One still needed to feel and explore it himself. Chapter 3096. Let's not worry about that for now. Since I can feel the meridians, let's talk about it later. Ling Han was very ambitious. He let go of the doubts in his heart and concentrated on punching. There was even more power surging into his body, circulating in his meridians. This meridian was very sluggish, as if there were many impurities. However, every time a force surged through it, it was as if a plow had been used to clear it up. Ling Han discovered that his meridians were actually so small and full of impurities. As he smoothed them over and over again, a lot of impurities were brought out, and his meridians gradually widened. Suddenly, he found that there was no longer any power surging into his body. No matter how he punched, he could not enter this state. What's the reason? As so dirty, he discovered that there was a layer of black stuff on his hand, and it even smelled fishy. When he looked again, it wasn't just his hands. His arms, thighs, and entire body were covered in the same pattern. Could it be that these are the impurities that are removed from the meridians? Ling Han suddenly realized something. That must be it. He quickly went to take a shower. This world was very strange. Water did not need to be fetched. It was connected to the house through iron pipes. As long as a switch was turned, the water would flow out. You could even choose whether it was hot or cold water. Ling Han took a shower and rinsed off all the dirt on his body. Growl. His stomach growled. So hungry. Ling Han was surprised. Ever since he had achieved success in his cultivation, he had lost his sense of hunger. But now, not only was he hungry, he was so hungry that he felt like he could swallow an entire cow. He called Summoning Snow over and asked her to prepare some food. After eating, Ling Han continued to practice. But to his disappointment, that strand of power no longer surged into his body. From morning to noon, and then to night, Ling Han did not stop. He practiced for another night, and only stopped when he was really tired. If it had been yesterday, he definitely wouldn't have been able to hold on for so long. However, after absorbing the strands of energy in the morning, his physique seemed to have become much stronger, allowing him to hold on. Of course, it wouldn't take too long. A day and a night shouldn't be a problem. The night passed, and the sun rose again from the east. When the red sun appeared, that energy came again. Threads of coolness flowed into Ling Han's body, giving him an indescribable sense of comfort. Could it be because of the sun? Ling Han wondered. When the sun rose, there might be some sort of special resonance, but when the sun rose, that resonance would disappear. Sure enough, after a while, the energy stopped surging. Ling Han stopped. There was no point in continuing. He would only feel tired, and it would be a complete waste of time. According to the meridian map, the meridian I'm opening now is the Foot Yangming stomach meridian. If I were to practice fist techniques, it would only be effective in the early morning. This means that I can no longer sleep in, shower. Although he could only cultivate for a short while, filth appeared on Ling Han's body again. It was simply unbearable. This world is a bit like the mechanical world of the Yuan world. It's mainly based on technology. However, there was a turning point in history more than 100 years ago. Martial art rose without restraint, and technology was ruthlessly crushed by martial art. However, Even though technology doesn't have an advantage in fighting, in daily life, technology really brings a lot of convenience. Ling Han looked at the clock hanging on the wall. It was said that this was a common thing before the world changed. But now that a large number of factories had turned into ruins, these things were less and less. The night passed. Ling Han woke up early and practiced fist techniques in the yard. The whole process only took about half an hour. Any longer, and there would be no effect. All he could do was improve his usage of fist techniques. When he had just finished breakfast, he was summoned by Sun Jianfang. "Greetings, sect leader." Ling Han bowed. No matter how high he stood before, he was now an ordinary person. He had just opened a meridian in his body, and could barely be considered to be on the path of cultivation. Sun Jianfang nodded and asked, "Have you studied the fist technique manual I gave you a few days ago?" "Yes," Ling Han answered honestly. "If there's anything you don't understand, feel free to ask." Sun Jianfang said. He paused and smiled. "I gave you these few days so that you can ask all the questions you have accumulated, so that you don't have to waste time going back and forth." "Oh, I see." Ling Han shook his head. "There's nothing I don't understand. I've learned everything." Sun Jianfang was about to drink his tea, but when he heard that, he couldn't help but show a hint of displeasure. He put down the teacup and said, "If you know, then you know. If you don't know, then you don't know. I hate people who pretend to know when they don't." Ling Han's mouth twitched. There really wasn't anything he didn't understand. Did he want him to pretend to be stupid? "Indeed, there's nothing I don't understand," he said. Sun Jianfang almost kicked him, but after thinking about it, he forcefully suppressed it and said, "Okay, since you're so confident, then show me." "Okay." Ling Han nodded and immediately got into a stance and practiced. Every move and every style was perfect. Sun Jianfang was dumbfounded, as if he had seen a ghost. He had already overestimated Ling Han enough, which was why he summoned Ling Han today, to give him some pointers. In his opinion, it had only been a few days, and Ling Han had at most practiced 1/3 of the fist style, so he would definitely have too many questions. This was already a very, very high estimation of Ling Han. After all, he was a son of God, and couldn't be measured by normal people's standards. But now, not only did Ling Han learn the entire fist style, but he also didn't make a single mistake. It was so perfect that even Sun Jianfang couldn't help but want to praise it. "Damn, this is too exaggerated. Is a divine child so awesome? Genius. No, super genius." He wanted to praise Ling Han excitedly. With such an heir, the ancient Tao sect would definitely be able to take the lead in the future glorious era, and stand proudly. But after thinking about it again, he shook his head in his heart. "No, this brat is already proud enough. If I praise him again, won't I be flying into the sky?" Sun Jianfang slowly nodded and said, "In the end, you didn't disappoint this old man. This is a bit more like it." After he finished speaking, his face was burning hot. He was lying against his conscience. Would he be struck by lightning 5 times by the heavens? Chapter 3097. The path to immortality is long and arduous, Sun Jianfang said. Ling Han didn't say anything and just listened. The first step to immortality is to communicate with heaven and earth through techniques, and extract the power of heaven and earth. Sun Jianfang finally said something useful, and confirmed Ling Han's guess, that he could only cultivate for half an hour in the morning. The human body has 12 main meridians. Once they are opened, the body will be filled with power, and an ordinary person will have the ability to shatter rocks and pillars. In the ancient books, there are powerful people who can overturn rivers and seas. They are unparalleled. However, the first step is not to open the meridians, but to sense them first. Sun Jianfang paused and looked at Ling Han. Although the meridians of the human body are illustrated, they only tell you where they are. How to sense them is still up to you. Here, this is the meridian attraction fruit. He threw a red fruit to Ling Han, and a faint fragrance wafted out. After the Great Change, there were many earthquakes, and many ancient buildings appeared. There were even mountains that rose from the ground. Not only were there teachings and inheritances, but there were also this kind of fruit. If you eat it, it will greatly increase the probability of you sensing the meridians. Ling Han took the meridian attraction fruit with a strange expression, Should he tell him that he had already sensed the meridians and had made some progress? Don't underestimate this fruit. Our sect only has one meridian attraction fruit tree, and it can only bear 10 fruits every year. But there are too many people who need it, Sun Jianfang said seriously. If this fruit is sold outside, it will be worth at least 100 jade seeds. Jade seeds? Ling Han heard a new term and was very curious. Jade seeds are the essence of jade. They contain a certain kind of energy between heaven and earth. If they are stimulated by a spirit-gathering array, they can release the energy inside. They can be used to cultivate and strengthen themselves at any time, Sun Jianfang said. Ling Han nodded. This was equivalent to spirit stones. However, one could directly hold a spirit stone and cultivate, but this could only be done through an array. He nodded and kept the meridian drawing fruit. He didn't need it, but he could sell it. Moreover, he still wanted to restart the path of alchemy. If he could refine the meridian drawing fruit into the meridian drawing pill, wouldn't he be rich? Go. Sun Jianfang waved his hand. I'll give you 10 days. This old man will check if you can sense your meridians. Yes. Ling Han bowed respectfully, and then left. Sun Jianfang stroked his beard, and was a bit hesitant. Should he increase the time limit of 10 days? In the ancient Dao sect, the fastest time to sense a meridian was 29 days. 10 days. Seeing that Ling Han had mastered the square fist so quickly, he changed the deadline at the last minute. Forget it, 10 days it is. If this brat doesn't succeed at that time, I can suppress his arrogance. This will only be beneficial to Ling Han. Ling Han returned to his room and decided to learn more about alchemy. He asked Huan Shui where he could find alchemy books. Books? Huan Shui scratched her head and revealed a difficult expression. After the Great Change, the world was greatly damaged. Places like the library were the first to turn into ruins because they weren't heavily protected. Ling Han sighed. Was his luck really that bad? Huan Shui suddenly said. However, if young master just wants to look up information, you can use the optical computer. What optical computer? Ling Han was confused. Young master, have you never used the optical computer in your study? Huan Shui was even more confused. Ling Han shrugged his shoulders. He didn't even know what an optical computer was. It's all my fault. Huan Shui blamed herself. Chapter 3099. It's too chaotic here. I'll take you to a quieter place. Zheng Tongfeng smiled. He brought Ling Han to the elevator and brought them to the basement. The elevator was filled with electricity again. Ling Han nodded. No wonder the rise of the demonic beasts had caused such a huge upheaval for mankind. Humans relied too much on electricity. Once the power plant was destroyed, the operation of the city would be completely paralyzed. The basement was really quiet. There were many private rooms here, and at the door of each room stood a beautiful woman with a superior temperament. She did not wear heavy makeup, and her clothes were not revealing at all. However, the tight-fitting dresses completely outlined their curves, which made people's blood boil. Welcome, young masters. A beautiful woman immediately came up and bowed to the two. From her neck down, one could see a snow-white bulge through her collar. It was just a flash, which made people feel a sense of regret. Zheng Tongfeng could not help but swallow his saliva. He did not just look young. He was indeed only 20 years old, which was the age of youth and vigor. A little teasing could make him lose his composure. Invite your lady boss over, he said, staring at the chest of the beautiful woman. Yes, young master. The beautiful woman bowed again, then turned around and left. Her small butt was tightly wrapped in cloth. With a twist, it was extremely charming. Although she was new, she knew that those who could enter this place were definitely big customers of the casino. Therefore, she did not dare to slight them. Soon a woman with a hot figure walked over. Oh, if it isn't young Master Zheng. Forgive me for not coming out to greet you. This woman twisted her voluptuous body. Her slender waist and plump but formed a sharp contrast. Coupled with her long legs, it really made people's noses bleed. In particular, her skirt had a high slit. Once she walked, a snow-white thigh was revealed. One could see the beautiful curves, and it was dazzlingly white. Zheng Tongfeng's eyes suddenly lit up. He greedily glanced at this woman's body. After a while he said, Sister Yang, you really flatter me. I'm just a small character. How can I afford to receive you? This is. Sister Yang turned to look at Ling Han, biting her red lips. Her eyes were watery, and she looked at Ling Han coquettishly. Ling Han smiled faintly. Ling Han. He'd seen too many beauties in the origin world, and there was no lack of peerlessly beautiful and seductive beauties amongst them. But had his heart ever been moved? Sister Yang couldn't help but be surprised. She had too much confidence in her appearance and figure. Any gentleman of virtue would be tempted to look at her. At the very least, they would blush and their hearts would race. They wanted to look but didn't dare to. But the young man in front of her was too calm. In his eyes, she was like a mass of air. However, of course, she would not show it. She smiled and said, "It's young Master Ling's first time here. I will definitely treat you well." She invited Ling Han and Zheng Tongfeng into a private room, and a beautiful woman immediately brought wine and fruits. "Sister Yang, I want to talk to you." Zheng Tongfeng waved at Sister Yang. "Oh, what's the matter? You have to be so secretive." Sister Yang smiled as she swayed her butt and walked out of the private room with Zheng Tongfeng. "Sister Yang, junior brother Ling is the future Taoist of our ancient Tao sect. The sect master dotes on him very much, and even gave him a meridian drawing fruit. You have to know that he's only been in our sect for less than 10 days, Zheng Tongfeng said. Sister Yang's beautiful eyes lit up. She opened her mouth slightly, revealing a row of snow-white teeth. She was very charming. Zheng Tongfeng felt a fire burning in his chest. He wanted to pounce on this beautiful woman, but he could only think about it in his heart. This beauty was not only a 6-meridian master, but it was said that the person behind her was a king of 11 meridian masters. Not to mention him, even Li Zhongdian couldn't afford to offend him. Otherwise, with such a beautiful woman and such a profitable business, how could Sister Yang be so safe and smooth all the time? So Sister Yang, you might as well make a lot of money from him, Zheng Tongfeng said with a smile. Sister Yang also giggled. You're really bad. You're even screwing over your own family. Isn't it because I like Sister Yang? Zheng Tongfeng said as he reached out, wanting to take advantage of her. However, Sister Yang twisted her body and dodged. She giggled and said, Okay. I'll remember this favor. I'll give you 10%, okay? Zheng Tongfeng nodded. If Sister Yang was willing to sleep with him for a night, he definitely wouldn't want anything. However, even if Sister Yang asked, he didn't have the guts to do it. He really didn't want his life. A beautiful dealer came into the room. She smiled sweetly at Ling Han. Young Master Ling, what do you want to play? Ling Han smiled faintly. I don't have a single cent, so I can't play anything. It's fine. Sister Yang said that young Master Ling's identity is special, so his reputation can be completely trusted. She gave young Master Ling 100,000 ancient Tao coins and 100 jade seeds, the beauty said. Ancient Tao coins were the currency issued by the ancient Tao sect, and were used by normal people. However, jade seeds were used globally, so everyone knew the value of this thing. Here, these are your chips. The silver ones can only be exchanged for ancient Tao coins, while the gold ones can be exchanged for jade seeds. The beauty pushed the 2-colored chips to Ling Han. Ling Han thought about it and said, Then let's play dice. Let's see who's bigger. He had a guess in his heart, and wanted to confirm it. Okay. The beautiful dealer took out the dice and put it on the table. Young Master Ling, how much do you want to bet? 1,000 ancient Tao coins. Ling Han looked around and threw out a silver coin. This was also the smallest denomination. The beauty nodded. Young Master Ling, after you. According to the rules of the casino, the one with the biggest number wins. If the numbers are the same, then the dealer wins. Ling Han grabbed the dice and threw it casually. It was actually a 1 and a 2, which was almost the smallest. The beauty revealed a smile. As long as she didn't throw 2 ones, she would win. Putting aside the fact that she had been trained for a long time, even if she was a completely normal person, she would still have a 90% chance of winning. She picked up the dice and threw them. The 2 dice spun around in the air. The dice became slower and slower, and were about to stop. These 2 dice rotated at different speeds. Hence, one of them stopped first. Just as it was about to stop on a 6, for some reason, it moved slightly again and became a 1. The beauty was stunned. Her hand actually trembled. It was fine, it was fine. As long as the second dice was not also a 1, it would be fine. However, things did not go as she wished. When the second dice stopped, it was clearly a 3. But for some reason, it moved again and became a 1. This 2 ones, so of course it lost to a 3. Young Master Ling is really lucky. You won on the first try, the beauty said reluctantly. Her heart was filled with confusion. Ling Han smiled. He guessed correctly. The luck attribute was working. End of chapter. Chapter 3100. In the Yuan world, people with orbs of light in their consciousness all had something special about them. For example, Ling Han's natural talent in alchemy was superb, Ning Haixin had an extremely strong affinity, and Wang Chuanhe was extremely lucky. And all of this, after Ling Han had obtained the power of the entire origin world and the entire void. These attributes had all been obtained by him. The Yuan world and the void were all contained in the God Stone. Since it was called the God Stone, it shouldn't just be used to nurture Ling Han, right? Therefore, Ling Han guessed that all of his abilities should be useful. Of course, he couldn't guarantee it, so he had to give it a try. 2000. He pushed out another chip. In the end, he threw out a 5, while the beauty only had 3. The gambling continued. No matter how good or bad Ling Han's luck was, he always won 1 or 2 points more than his opponent. With great difficulty, the beauty finally threw out 2 6s. The banker won, but Ling Han suddenly lowered the stakes, causing her to feel even more depressed than if she had lost. After completely proving that he possessed the luck attribute, Ling Han began to place his golden chips. Soon, the beauty lost so much that her hands were trembling. Jade seed. That was a priceless item. A single jade seed could buy her entire person. But now, she had lost as many as 100 jade seeds. How could she not break out in a cold sweat? Meng, take a rest first. I'll go. Sister Yang appeared. She had a smile on her pretty face, but her eyes were murderous. Wow, this Zheng Tongfeng actually dared to trick her. How was he a young chick? He was simply a tiger in disguise. His gambling skills were too good. Ling Han had only lost small amounts of money, but had won large bets. If one were to say that he was not an expert gambler, who would believe that? Zheng Tongfeng also came in. He looked at the small mountain of chips in front of Ling Han in shock. 10,000 thoughts ran through his mind. Damn, what was going on? The staff of the casino were all professionals. How could they lose to a youngster? Ling Han nodded and smiled. Sure. In fact, he did not have any gambling skills. It was all based on luck. The key was that his luck was so good that he could ignore anyone. It did not matter who it was. How about we change the way we bet? Sister Yang suggested with a smile. Sure. Ling Han didn't mind. They switched to playing Pai Gao. After a brief introduction of the rules, the game began. After a short while, cold sweat broke out on Big Sister Yang's fair forehead. At first glance, they had bet 10 rounds, and both sides had a 50-50 chance of winning or losing. However, Ling Han only lost a small amount of money, and every round he won was a huge profit. Thus, even though the number of rounds he won and lost was the same, he still won a few hundred jade seeds. Sister Yang could not hold on any longer. She knew that she had encountered a true expert. Absolutely, she didn't even know how she lost. She could only attribute it to luck. Luck is illusory, can it be taken seriously? Therefore, it could only be said that Ling Han's gambling skills were too good. He couldn't even tell. I'm a little tired, she said. Young Master Ling is really good at gambling. Why don't we call it a day? It's almost dawn. I also need a good rest. Women staying up late is too harmful. Ling Han did not go too far. If he continued to gamble, the entire casino might have to pay him back. Then, whether he could walk out of here alive would be a problem. After all, he was too weak now. He nodded, put away his chips and left. When he passed by Zheng Tongfeng, he smiled and said, "Thank you, senior brother Zheng." Then he left. As expected, Sister Yang looked at Zheng Tongfeng. Her gaze was sharp and full of killing intent. How much did the casino lose this night? Nearly 700 jade seeds. Chapter 3101. The Earth Yuan iron was extremely tough. and it was also resistant to heat and cold. It was very difficult to forge. Fortunately, everything had its vanquisher. Earth origin iron was most afraid of a type of acid. If it was soaked in it for a day, the Earth origin iron would become extremely soft. At that time, it could be easily molded into various shapes. Carving runes on it would not be a problem either. Soon, the Earth yuan iron was cut into 3 parts and formed into the shape that Ling Han wanted. The next step was the most important, which was to carve the formation runes on it. The 3 origin formations foundation was easy to make, but it was said that just carving the formation runes was useless. One had to be able to control the terrain and the might of the heavens. It was extremely profound. Ling Han did not need to worry about this for now. Now that he had made the foundation, the next step was simple. He just had to refine the pill. He returned to the ancient Tao sect and looked at the refining process of the meridian drawing pill in detail. He was 90% confident. For an alchemy genius, this was just a slight change in the alchemy technique. No matter how many changes there were, it was not a big deal. Indeed, the meridian drawing pill was a very simple recipe. Ling Han went to the place he had chosen before and inserted the 3 formation foundations. Then he added some jade seeds, and in an instant, the 3 formation foundations all lit up. Formations were a way to use the power of the heavens and earth. A kind of understanding rose up in Ling Han's heart. From a certain perspective, the principle behind the formations in the origin world was the same as the ones here. It was just that the specific details were different. Since the jade seeds were called seeds, they were not big. Each one was about the size of a soybean, and under the operation of the formation, they all seemed to be burning and gave off a dense aura. After the jade seeds burned for a while, the heavens and earth finally reacted. A powerful force appeared and turned into a silver furnace. It was really magical. Ling Han was shocked. This was completely different from the alchemy in the origin world. He did not hesitate, and immediately threw the meridian drawing fruit into the silver furnace. It was clearly formed from energy, but now it seemed to have become solid. It could hold the meridian drawing fruit and not let it fall. What Ling Han had to do next was to throw and retrieve the jade seeds to control the heat. To an alchemist, what is the most important and most basic skill? It was fire control. Therefore, although the specific methods were different now, the logic was the same. Ling Han put down the jade seed for a while, and then picked it up again. Sometimes he would take the second one from the first array base, and sometimes he would take the first one from the second and third array bases. About an hour later, the jade seed burned to nothing. On the surface, there were only a few cracks, but with a little force, it would turn into powder. Pa, 7 medicinal pills fell from midair. Ling Han shot out like an arrow and caught all 7 alchemical pills. He broke into a smile. The recipe says that as long as I can form pills, I can refine 3 to 10 pills in one furnace. My 7 pills should be considered a pass. This was far more than a passing grade. Very few people could successfully refine a meridian drawing pill on their first try. Even for a very famous alchemist array master, they could only refine 7 or 8 pills. 10 pills was the theoretical maximum. Ling Han was the alchemy emperor. That was the case in the past, and it was the case now. Ling Han put the medicinal pills away, very satisfied. If he sold them, he could get at least 1,000 jade seeds. The effect of the meridian drawing pill was much better than the meridian drawing fruit. Therefore, if the meridian drawing fruit could be sold for 100 jade seeds, then the meridian drawing pill could be sold for a few times. He returned to his residence and thought, how should I sell the meridian drawing pill? Right now he was a bit of a target. He had just won 700 jade seeds. If people knew he sold 7 more meridian drawing pills, wouldn't it be the same as asking people to rob him? The problem was he was too weak. Alright. He turned on his optical computer. Buzz, the image of a beautiful girl appeared. Is there an auction here? Ling Han asked. I'm sorry, the network has been destroyed. I can't check the main server. The girl replied, however, there is an anonymous black market here. It might be able to meet your requirements. Oh, bring up the information. Ling Han nodded. The optical computer brought up the information. Ling Han looked at it carefully and pondered. This black market should have been started by the disciples of the ancient Tao sect. At that time, some disciples were adventuring outside and obtained some treasures. They didn't want others to know, so they hid their identities and traded. As time passed, more and more people used this method. Moreover, it gradually formed a scale and had a fixed location. When trading in the black market, one had to wear their own eyes. If they bought fake goods, they definitely wouldn't be able to find someone to return them. It's on the west side of Sea Level Mountain. If you go any further west, it will be the territory of the demonic beasts. Ling Han murmured. This place was really remote. To go or not to go? Ling Han hesitated slightly and decided to go. He wanted to buy a spirit gathering formation. The so-called spirit gathering formation was to extract the energy from the jade seeds and increase the speed of a cultivator's cultivation. However, the method to make a spirit gathering formation couldn't be found on the optical computer. Only formation alchemists could make it, and there was a limit to its use. After filling up the jade seeds a few times, it would break. If one wanted to use it again, they would have to buy a new one. He prepared a cloak and a new set of clothes for himself. Then when the moon fell, he walked towards the west side of the mountain. The black market was only open at night, from midnight to around 3 o'clock. The distance was about 15 kilometers, but the mountain road was rugged and not easy to walk. Luckily, Ling Han's constitution had greatly improved these few days. His stamina was much stronger than ordinary people. After walking 15 kilometers in one breath, he was only panting and sweating, but he didn't lie down. He couldn't help but sigh. It was only a mere 15 kilometers. If it was before, it wouldn't have mattered. It was a completely different world. He changed into the new clothes and put on the cloak to cover his face. Then he walked out and continued forward. Chapter 3103. That person sneered. The black market only cares about buying and selling, no violence. Do you want to die? Nieyang couldn't help but feel suffocated. After the black market developed, there were all sorts of rules. Fighting and causing trouble was one of them. Anyone who disobeyed would be ganged up on. Although Nieyang had 7 meridians and had an 11 meridians grandfather, he didn't dare act so recklessly. He could only pick up the bag on the ground. Since the other party knew it was a meridian drawing pill, he obviously couldn't take it back. At least you know what's good for you, the person said coldly. Ling Han took out a third bottle and placed it in front of him. Hey, what medicine is this? The person asked. Meridian drawing pill. Sell it to me. The person was pleasantly surprised. It was only 150. Even if he didn't use it himself, he could sell it for a high price. Idiot, he really was an idiot. Ling Han shook his head. Each person can only buy one. Hey, are you an idiot? In any case, you're selling medicine. It doesn't matter who you sell it to, the person shouted. Ling Han glanced at him and said, Since it's my medicine, I can sell it to whoever I want. I don't need you to tell me what to do. You. The person was furious and pointed at Ling Han. He couldn't help but want to attack. Ling Han smiled faintly. You dare attack me here? Do you want to die? The person immediately choked. This was what he had just said to Nieyang. He hadn't expected to receive retribution so quickly. Ha 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 ha. Nieyang laughed heartily. This was too satisfying. The person looked coldly at Ling Han. Are you really not selling? Ling Han smiled. You do need medicine, but it's not a meridian drawing pill. It's for your ears. There's clearly something wrong with your hearing. There's also something wrong with your brain, Nieyang said leisurely. The person trembled in anger and said coldly, Good, good, good. You've got guts. I've already remembered your voice. As long as I find you somewhere else, I'll teach you how to be a good person. Ling Han deliberately crossed his arms. I'm so scared. It had been many years since he had been threatened like this, and it gave him a sense of novelty. Just you wait. That person turned and left. Ling Han shook his head. They had both bought a meridian drawing pill. But why was the difference between them so great? What? There's a meridian drawing pill here? The commotion they had caused earlier had immediately attracted the attention of the surrounding people. Sell it to me. No, sell it to me. There was less porridge but more monks, and it immediately caused a commotion. First come, first served. Each person is limited to one, Ling Han said. I am number one, I am number one. Because the black market had its own rules, no one dared to mess around. This was something that had been established for a long time, and no one dared to break it. Therefore, even though the meridian drawing pill was filled with temptation, no one dared to break the rules, cut the queue, or use force. After selling 6 bottles, Ling Han took out the 7th bottle and said, "This is the last one. I'll pay 160 jade seeds. Sell them to me." Someone took the initiative to increase the price. I bid 170, 180. This was like an auction, and everyone was bidding against each other. However, Ling Han shook his head. I will sell my medicine for as much as I want. I don't haggle or increase the price. He sold the 7th meridian drawing pill to the next person in line. 150, no more, no less. Some people secretly thought that Ling Han was stupid. Wasn't this going against money? Some people admired Ling Han. There weren't many people who could adhere to their principles now. Ling Han patted his butt and got up. He had already earned enough jade seeds, and it was time to spend them. He swept his gaze across one stall after another. There really were many strange things here. Most of them were broken weapons. It was said that they had been excavated from ancient ruins. They had once possessed unfathomable power, but because they were broken now, they could no longer display their power. But when it came to sharpness, they were much better than the current craftsmanship, and they were also much sturdier than Earth Yuan iron. Ling Han suppressed his curiosity. He had to find a spirit-gathering formation first. If his own strength wasn't enough, so what if he had a divine weapon? Ling Han had always believed that one's own strength was the way of the king and the foundation. There really was a spirit-gathering formation here. Ling Han asked for the price, and asked for 20 jade seeds. Was it cheap? It wasn't cheap at all. 1 jade seed could buy a slave, so 20 jade seeds was definitely a huge sum of money. Moreover, this spirit-gathering formation only had a total of 7 formation bases. The materials were very coarse, just ordinary steel. However, it wasn't like there wasn't anything special. Ling Han sensed that the formation base was emitting a faint energy from the formation patterns carved on it. According to the seller, each spirit-gathering formation could be used about 3 times, after which the formation base would disintegrate. When using it, 10 to 100 jade seeds had to be filled in each time. The more jade seeds there were, the better the effect. Ling Han thought about it, and bought 9 sets of spirit-gathering formations. It wasn't that he didn't want to buy a few more, but that the seller only had 9 sets. Mission accomplished, Ling Han left. He still had a lot of jade seeds, but they all needed to be used for cultivation. He couldn't waste them. Returning to the sect, he found a place to change his clothes, and returned to his residence. After resting for a while, it was time for the sun to rise. Ling Han got up and began to practice. Call Snow also woke up very early. She wanted to prepare breakfast for Ling Han. After she finished, she went to the courtyard to watch Ling Han practice. After half an hour, Ling Han stopped practicing. The sun had already risen, so there was no longer any effect to practice. However, he still had the spirit-gathering formation. Ling Han started to set up the formation base. Seeing Call Snow standing at the side, he asked, "Call Snow, do you want to practice?" Call Snow was stunned. She first revealed a longing expression, then shook her head. "I'm not cut out for martial arts." Ling Han smiled and said, "As long as you have perseverance, willpower, and a little luck, nothing is impossible. In the future, I'll prepare a few meridian drawing pills for you." "Thank you, young master," Call Snow said. Call Shui said. However, she thought that Ling Han had only said it casually to amuse her. What a joke! How precious were the meridian drawing pills. Chapter 3104. Ling Han continued to punch, and in this process, slivers of energy surged into his body, surging in his meridians, widening his meridians and expelling the impurities, leaving behind some kind of mysterious energy. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Ling Han's punches became faster and faster. One could even see afterimages left behind. Although the opening meridian realm is determined by how many meridians one has opened, cultivation is cultivation, and strength is strength. They cannot be confused. It's the same meridian, but the width of everyone's open meridians is different. Normally, the strength of one meridian is about 250 kilograms. 250 kilograms of strength is already very extraordinary. It's easy to kill a wild wolf with one's bare hands. But the limit is 800 kilograms of strength, enough to defeat a fierce tiger. Ling Han thought as he punched. His dream was to break through 800 kilograms of strength. That way, even if his cultivation speed was a bit slower, as long as his strength was strong enough, would he need to care about his realm? Strength was the way. Everything else was superficial. He had gone from the refining body realm to the sky sovereign realm. Would Ling Han care about such superficial things like cultivation? He practiced from morning to noon and finally stopped. It wasn't that he was tired. On the contrary, his spirit was at its peak, but his meridians were aching. He realized that if he continued, his meridians might break. That was too stupid. More haste, less speed. There must be a limit to everything. Ling Han had a good rest, took a bath, and ate a meal. Then he went to the basement. There was a dynamometer here. It was a very crude dynamometer. It was very large, taking up 2/3 of the basement. His feet were fixed to the ground with extremely thick steel screws. Facing Ling Han was a black-colored metal plate. There was a layer of skin wrapped around it, and if he punched it, it would immediately show his power. The leather was obviously to protect his hands. Ling Han condensed his chi, and then suddenly shot out a punch. Energy surged out of his meridians. Bang, the punch landed solidly, but the dynamometer didn't tremble at all. Only a number jumped, and finally stopped at a number. 264 kilograms. So little. Ling Han was a little dissatisfied. Although he had already put aside the fact that he was once an omnipotent heavenly venerate, after a few days of training, he actually only had over 100 kilograms of strength. A little weak, huh? It's good that Veil is here. This square fist is just a simplified version. Its effects definitely can't be compared to the real fist technique. If I can derive the real fist technique, my progress will definitely be much faster. Ling Han sighed. But the square fist was the foundation of the ancient Tao sect. Even the elders could only learn 3 to 5 forms. So how could he inherit all of them? Not only could it be used for cultivation, but it could also be used against enemies. It was extremely powerful. Try using fist techniques. Ling Han used 4-direction fist, and then suddenly delivered another punch. Bam, the leather rippled, and emitted a muffled sound. The value changed again. 305 kilograms. The enhancement isn't great, but it's stable. If I don't use fist techniques and keep punching, my strength will fluctuate between 200 to 260 kilograms. But after using fist techniques, I can always maintain it at around 300 kilograms. Ling Han rubbed his chin and began to ponder. Then with my current body, how many punches can I throw? He started testing again. If he didn't use fist techniques, he could maintain his fastest punching speed, and could punch out around 100 times. Then his speed would slow down, and after 300 punches, he would basically have no strength left. Then, if he used fist techniques, he could punch out 150 punches in one breath. Then his arms would feel like they were on fire, and he would no longer be able to exert any strength. If I'm fighting with someone, I have to calculate my limit. I can't just fight to my heart's content and end up in a situation where I'm exhausted. Ling Han didn't practice fist techniques again in the afternoon. He had a good rest, and the next morning, he started training hard again. His progress was astonishing. After a day, his fist strength had increased to more than 290 kilograms. The effect of the spirit gathering formation is very obvious. It has more than doubled my cultivation speed. It's just that my body isn't strong enough to support an entire day of training. What he didn't know was that if someone else used the spirit gathering formation like him, they would definitely be bedridden the next day. Ling Han's recovery speed was insane, but he wasn't completely used to his identity as an ordinary person. Unknowingly, he would compare himself to his past self, which was definitely too far apart. Day after day, Ling Han's advancement was astonishingly fast. On the 10th day of the appointment with Sun Jianfang, Ling Han's fist strength had already entered the 500 kilograms mark. In theory, He could already be at the pinnacle of one meridian and could open up a second meridian. But Ling Han didn't feel that he had opened up the foot Yangming stomach meridian to the extreme, and there was still a lot of room for improvement. Young master, the sect leader wants to see you. Summon Snow came over. Ling Han nodded. He stood up and left the house, going to Sun Jianfang's place. How is it? Did you feel your meridian? Sun Jianfang asked. Although 10 days was a little short, with the help of the meridian drawing fruit and Ling Han's talent, it should be possible to feel his meridian. I felt it, Ling Han said honestly. Sun Jianfang smiled, looking very satisfied. Even with the help of the meridian drawing fruit, it was very extraordinary to feel his first meridian in 10 days. Good. He pointed to the strength measuring device in the yard. Come try and see how much strength you have now. Ling Han walked over, clenched his fist, and the strength in his meridian surged. He didn't use any fist techniques. Pung he punched out, and the numbers flashed. 500 kilograms. Sun Jianfang was so shocked that he couldn't speak. Although this little bit of strength was not worth mentioning in front of him, a person who had just appeared for more than 10 days, a person who had just felt his meridian, could actually punch out with a strength of 500 kilograms? Damn, what kind of monster was this? This was already the peak of one meridian. Genius, really a genius. Sun Jianfang couldn't help but sigh. He looked at Ling Han, and his gaze became even gentler. Your progress has far exceeded this old man's expectations. He thought that Ling Han's fist strength could at most reach 100 kilograms. Chapter 3105. You are very good. Sun Jianfang nodded and smiled. He waved his hand and took out another fruit. I'll give you another meridian drawing fruit. This old man has always been fair with his rewards and punishments. What a pleasant surprise. Ling Han quickly took it. This was a gift for him to get rich, so how could he refuse? Also, if the meridian drawing fruit was consumed directly, the effect would be too poor, and it could only be consumed by one person. However, if it was refined into a pill, it would be different. With Ling Han's skill, it would not be a problem for him to refine 6 to 8 pills. He was making a contribution to the ancient Tao sect. This time, I'll give you 20 days to do another inspection. Sun Jianfang waved his hand, indicating that Ling Han could leave. Wait, he said again. Don't let anyone know about your cultivation progress. If someone asks, just say that you only sensed your first meridian after 20 days. Ling Han nodded. He knew that Sun Jianfang wanted him to hide his strength. After all, a person's heart was unpredictable, and not everyone wanted to see him grow. In fact, without Sun Jianfang's warning, Ling Han would not have told anyone about his cultivation progress. If others knew about it, how could he trick them? He returned to his residence and found the base of the ternary formation. Then he went to the place where he refined pills and set up the formation. Soon the meridian drawing fruit was refined into pills. This time, it was 6 pills, which was a bit worse than the last time. Ling Han was not discouraged. The success rate of concocting pills was fluctuating in the first place, so one more or one less was completely within the normal range. Only by improving his technique could he further increase the success rate of refining pills. This could only be done slowly. Moreover, 6 or 7 pills per furnace was already quite a lot. Because he still had a lot of jade seeds, Ling Han was not in a rush to sell them. He returned to his room and used the optical computer to understand more about this world. This could be seen as a castrated version of Wally. Ling Han thought to himself. These words could not be allowed to be known by Wally, or else he, who had an additional emotional function, would definitely explode. This new world was a bit like an ancient realm. It was a vast and boundless starry sky, filled with stars. The celestial body he was on was called Sky Sea Star, which belonged to the Centaur galaxy. There were 11 planets like Sky Sea Star in this galaxy, revolving around a huge star. Only Empyrean Star had given birth to life, but as Empyrean Star's technology reached its peak, probes were sent to other planets, and amazing discoveries were made. Ling Han looked at the picture. It was a dilapidated building. This had once caused a sensation. Could it be that civilizations had appeared on other celestial bodies? But before humans could explore further, the world changed drastically, and this was put on hold. The problem of survival had not even been solved, and he still had the mind to explore the boundless universe. People speculated that the universe was endless, and there must be other life forms and civilizations. Maybe one day, intelligent creatures with a higher level of civilization would come to heavenly sea star. According to historical records, human civilization originated 3,000 years ago, but now that the world has changed, many ancient buildings have appeared from underground. This means that human civilization is not as short as 3,000 years. But how did the civilization 3,000 years ago go extinct? Big earthquakes, super tsunamis, and the bombardment of meteorites. Before that, some people speculated that humans evolved from apes. Ling Han touched his own face. He was a little unable to imagine how he would look like with a protruding mouth and monkey cheeks, and a face full of hair. How did we get here? Ling Han turned off the optical computer. He knew how he got here, but the question was, what was the origin of that god stone? Although Sun Jianfang said that he brought it back from an ancient site, where was the specific information? Everything was blank. I need to explore this myself. What an interesting world. It's a pity that Luan Xing big brother and second brother can't come out. Otherwise, it would be so interesting to adventure in this world together. Ling Han was very peaceful. He was too weak now and needed to hide. Every day, after he finished training, he would test his strength. It started from 250 kilograms and steadily increased. Soon, he passed 600 kilograms, then 700 kilograms, and then 800 kilograms. 800 kilograms of strength was the limit, that even geniuses could not go further. In the ancient Dao sect's history, no one had ever exceeded 800 kilograms of strength at one meridian. However, Ling Han was not satisfied. If he stopped at this, then he could only be a so-called genius. However, he had always pursued the limit. 800 kilograms. No. Ling Han was also very confident because he did not feel any pressure on his meridians. This meant that his meridians could continue to expand. 900 kilograms, 500 kilograms. On the 12th day after Sun Jianfang left, Ling Han had 500 kilograms of strength. This was very terrifying. It has to be said that ordinary people with 2 meridians only had this amount of strength. Ling Han only had 1 meridian, but he could match up to 2 meridians. How could this not be shocking? I've really reached my limit. I can already feel my meridians aching. I can't expand anymore, or else they will explode. Ling Han muttered to himself. Okay, let's start sensing the second meridian. He chose to start training early in the morning. This was because he needed to sense a new meridian, and the spirit gathering formation had no effect. The first meridian was already full of power, and could not absorb any more energy. As a result, the energy that entered his body began to search for a new breakthrough point. However, he could not find a breakthrough point in a short period of time. The energy in his body rampaged, making Ling Han feel very uncomfortable. He coughed out a mouthful of blood, and felt very uncomfortable in his chest. Damn, this is killing me. Ling Han gasped for breath. He knew that he was a bit too impatient. Things like cultivation could not be rushed, or else the result would be cultivation deviation. I'll take it slow. Ling Han adjusted his state of mind, and began to practice the square fist again. He still did not eat the meridian drawing fruit, because he believed in his own ability. The energy that rushed into his body began to rampage again. Ling Han cleared his mind and let the energy flow, looking for a breakthrough point. The energy was like a small snake, swimming everywhere in his body, making him feel more and more uncomfortable. However, Ling Han gritted his teeth and endured it, as if this body did not belong to him. After experiencing so many catastrophes and disasters, this was a piece of cake for him. However, this could not last for too long. The energy would definitely cause damage to his body. When he was about to reach his limit, Ling Han's body trembled slightly, and he felt extremely relaxed. Done. He smiled. The energy had finally found a breakthrough point. It poured in from the ring finger of his right hand, along his arm to his shoulder, and then up his neck, stopping at the top of his right ear. He had opened the second meridian of the hand's minor Yang Sanjiao meridian. Second meridian. Ling Han felt relaxed all over. A powerful energy surged into his body, giving him a strong sense of power. Chapter 3107. A baboon was asking him for food. Ling Han was slightly surprised. This was not the origin world, where wild beasts had all become intelligent, so it would not be strange no matter how human-like and intelligent they were. This was a world that had just opened the path of evolution, so the appearance of such intelligent animals would definitely be shocking. Seeing that Ling Han did not respond, the baboon turned around and revealed its red buttocks, as if it was provoking him. Ling Han laughed loudly. He used his sword to cut off a piece of wolf thigh meat and threw it over. The baboon quickly caught it. It was extremely agile, but this piece of meat had just been thoroughly cooked and was extremely hot. Once it caught it, it immediately cried out. However, it was obviously a foodie and refused to let go. It just kept throwing it from its left hand to its right hand, and then from its right hand to its left hand. After throwing it back and forth dozens of times, the heat of the meat finally subsided. Only then did the baboon grab the meat and eat it. With one bite, oil flowed out. The meat was extremely plump. Ayo. This made the baboon very happy. It kept jumping in joy and ate even faster. Ling Han also started eating. He was indeed hungry. The baboon quickly finished the meat and stretched out its hand to Ling Han. Its eyes were wide open and looked a little cute, as if it was begging. Ling Han laughed in spite of himself. He had just seen it earlier, and it was speculated that humans had evolved from apes. Then was this his ancient brother? Take it. He threw out another piece of meat. The baboon jumped up excitedly again. Then it lowered its head and ate. Its appetite was really not small. After eating 4 pieces of meat, it did not continue asking for more from Ling Han. It jumped up and climbed up a tree. The leaves turned and it quickly disappeared. Saya was really ungrateful. It ran away after eating. You didn't even wipe your mouth. This kind of ancient brother was not worth it. Strange, didn't he also obtain a strong affinity? Why didn't it work on this monkey? Ling Han laughed in his heart. He naturally would not argue with a monkey. Seeing that the sky was already dark, he planned to find a cave to stay for the night. Right now, he was only at the peak of 2 meridians, and could not be considered strong. Thus he could not be careless. His luck was not bad. Soon he found a cave that was very dry. He started a fire, and used a stone to seal the cave entrance. Then he closed his eyes and rested. The sword was placed beside him. If any wild beasts wanted to attack at night, he would immediately kill them. The night passed very peacefully. Ling Han had already formed an instinct. He woke up before the sun came out. He pushed away the stone at the entrance, found a flat ground, and started practicing. This trip into the mountains was to gain experience. He also wanted to try his luck and see if he could find a precious fruit. After the great changes, many new plants had appeared, such as the meridian guiding fruit tree. Apart from that, there were also many plants that could bear precious fruits that were very beneficial to cultivators. These plants were called precious trees and precious grasses, and the fruits they bore were called precious fruits. Of course, there were also people who called them strange fruits, treasure fruits, and even immortal fruits. The ancient Tao sect had a meridian guide fruit tree, and it was currently the most precious tree. However, who knew if there would be a second tree in this vast mountain? Ling Han was in the middle of practicing his fist technique when his ears suddenly twitched. He heard a rustling sound, and then saw a large monkey jumping down from the tree and sitting down in front of him. There were at least 30 monkeys surrounding him. There were tall and sturdy male baboons, as well as female baboons that were carrying their young. They were all spectating aggressively, and some were even imitating Ling Han's punches. That nondescript scene made one want to laugh just by looking at it. Ling Han did not pay any attention to them. His cultivation time was limited, so he pretended that these monkeys did not exist. He only stopped after half an hour of cultivation. Squeak, squeak, squeak. These monkeys all jumped up as if they knew that Ling Han could not be disturbed. Are you all here for food? Ling Han could not help but break out in a cold sweat. Could it be that after that monkey ate the wolf meat, it went back and advertised it? That's why it brought so many companions today. In his eyes, every monkey looked the same, so it was very difficult to tell which monkey was the one from yesterday. All right, I'm going to eat breakfast anyway, Ling Han said with a smile. Seeing that they were an ancient family, he would treat them to breakfast. He started to roast the meat, and the monkeys continued to watch. These monkeys were very impatient, and when they smelled the meat, they started to jump up and down and drool. Take it. Ling Han divided the wolf meat into many portions. After taking a portion for himself, he gave the rest of the meat to the group of monkeys. The monkeys immediately rushed up and divided the roasted meat. After they finished eating, the group of monkeys dispersed in an uproar. Ah, they really are a group of ingrates. Ling Han shook his head. He tidied himself up a bit, put on his sword, and prepared to set off. Swish, swish, swish. The leaves moved and a few more monkeys appeared. However, this time, they were not empty-handed. They were each holding 2 fruits. There were a total of 7 monkeys, and they put down 14 fruits in front of Ling Han. Hey, are these for me? Ling Han was surprised. Could it be that he was wrong? These monkeys also knew how to repay a favor. Gigi. The 7 monkeys all jumped, as if they were responding to Ling Han. Ling Han laughed and picked up the fruit. He did not need to put it to his nose to smell a refreshing fragrance. He took it and washed it, then picked one and ate it. As soon as he bit it, the sweet juice exploded in his mouth, making all the pores on his body open up. There was only one word to describe it: comfortable. Not only that, he also felt a trace of energy flowing in his meridians, expanding them. However, the speed was ridiculously slow, and could not be compared to when he was training. It could increase one's cultivation. Ling Han was surprised. No matter how weak it was, it did not require him to train. It was completely obtained out of thin air. Who would reject it? Precious fruit. This was also a precious fruit. Ling Han wolfed down the fruit. After finishing one fruit, he began to eat the other fruits. These fruits were all of the same species. They were the size of a fist, red and bright. They were really good stuff. Not only were they delicious, but they could also increase one's cultivation. Even though Ling Han was already full, he still forced himself to eat all the fruits. 14 fruits were equivalent to an extra day of cultivation for him. Ling Han could not help but be full of expectations. He asked a big monkey, "Do you have more of these fruits?" How could the big monkeys understand? They all squeaked and looked at him, as if he was an idiot. Damn, I'm being looked down on by these monkeys. Ling Han pointed at the core of the fruit on the ground, and made an eating gesture, gesturing to the monkeys. Since these were ancient brothers, they should be able to understand, right? Military fans are in luck. Chongfeng's new work, The Throne of War. During the Age of Turmoil, hundreds of races fought for supremacy, and war was on the verge of breaking out. Mu Feng, a young man from the Human Alliance, met by chance. A small mechanic soldier bathed in blood on the battlefield. He fought bravely, and finally became a legendary king of a generation. Chapter 3108. As expected, these monkeys really understood. A baboon walked forward. After a few steps, it turned back and saw that Ling Han wasn't moving, so it waved its arm at him, as if hinting for him to follow. Ling Han understood. They were probably bringing him directly to the precious tree. Good, now he could go and pluck it himself. He didn't need to ask the monkeys for it. They traversed over mountains and ridges. The monkeys were very agile, and if there was no path, they would climb walls or climb trees. However, Ling Han was different. He was only slightly stronger than an ordinary person, and under such high-intensity exercise, he was very soon out of breath. He could only call for them to stop. After resting a few times along the way, they finally arrived at a valley. This valley was very secluded. The main reason was that the path was too difficult to traverse. No, there was no path at all. 70% of the distance was traversed by climbing trees. This was obviously the lair of the monkeys. There were over 100 monkeys in the valley, and when they saw Ling Han approach, they all jumped over, squeaking as they swung around on tree branches, appearing to have gone mad. Ling Han, on the other hand, smiled and tried his best to appear friendly. If these monkeys kept eating those precious fruits, they would probably be very strong. If he angered them, It would be no laughing matter if hundreds of them swarmed over him at the same time. He was once a supreme and unparalleled genius. If he were to die under the random punches of the monkeys, his name would really go down in history. There was a fruit tree at the bottom of the valley. It was only 8 meters tall. In this environment, this height was really not eye-catching at all. But what caught Ling Han's attention were the fruits on the tree. They were all the kind he had eaten before. However, most of them were not ripe yet. They were not even the size of a fist, and had not turned completely red. There were only about a dozen that could be plucked. They were all at the top of the tree. Ling Han immediately wanted to climb the tree to pluck the fruits. He walked to the bottom of the tree, and was about to start climbing, when he suddenly felt his feet slip. Pa! He fell solidly. Squeak, squeak, squeak. The monkeys were instantly delighted. All of them grinned and laughed. Fuck! He was actually laughed at by a group of monkeys. Ling Han patted his butt and stood up. He was also a little puzzled. Why did he suddenly fall? The ground here was not very slippery. Keeping his guard up, he tried to climb the tree again. Bang! He slipped again and fell hard for the second time. Squeak! The monkeys were not amused, so they immediately laughed so hard that they were rocking back and forth. There must be a ghost. Ling Han got up. He couldn't have fallen for no reason. Someone must be haunting him. There should be monkeys. He looked around, but every monkey was quite a distance away from him. He didn't believe that they could affect him by attacking from a distance. So what's going on? Ling Han was even more careful, and his movements were even slower. Pa! He suddenly reached out and directly hugged the tree trunk. Let's see how you're going to cause trouble now. Ling Han climbed up the tree, but he had only climbed less than half a meter when he felt his hands suddenly go limp. Pa! He immediately fell from the tree and fell flat on his face. Squeak, squeak. The monkeys laughed again. Scrambling Han felt depressed, like a tiger being bullied by a dog. He used to be so powerful and awesome, but now he was being laughed at by a group of monkeys. His heart felt stifled. Ha 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 ha. A laugh rang out. It was the sound of the monkeys that couldn't be suppressed. Ha! Ling Han was stunned. The monkeys only knew how to squeak and couldn't speak. So who was laughing? It's someone, there's someone here. It must be this person who attacked. However, this person shouldn't have any evil intentions. Otherwise, if he could exert his strength from a distance, killing him would be a piece of cake. Senior, can this junior pay his respects? Ling Han stood up and bowed to the surroundings. Brat, do you really want to see old son? A voice asked. This person's surname was Sunday. Ling Han smiled and said, Of course. Okay, then come and find old son, the voice said, full of craftiness. Ling Han first looked up the tree, but he didn't find anything. Then he expanded his range, but he still couldn't find anyone. There were only valley walls all around, and there were no caves. Where could he hide? He finally found a place that was different. It was piled up with huge leaves as if hiding something. Ling Han walked over and said, Senior should be here, right? However, could such a small place really hide a person? You're smart, brat. That voice rang out again. But even though Ling Han was clearly at the side, he couldn't detect that the voice came from the pile of leaves. An expert was indeed different. Ling Han peeled off the leaves 1, 2, 3. The leaves kept being plucked off, and when there were only 3 left, Ling Han plucked another leaf. His face couldn't help but reveal an expression of disbelief. Under this leaf, there wasn't a person hiding, but a monkey's head. Ling Han felt a little dizzy. Just now, a monkey was talking to him, and it was also a monkey that was teasing him. He looked again and saw that the monkey's body was completely hidden in the mountain, and only its head was exposed. It definitely didn't go in by itself, because the hole in its neck was extremely small, and it was impossible for its body to go out. It was also impossible for its head to go in, and there must be a passage on the other side. This monkey seemed to have been chained to the mountain. The monkey bared its teeth, a fierce expression on its face. Brat, why aren't you kneeling in front of me? It really was this monkey that was speaking. Ling Han was shocked. 100 years ago, Sky Sea Star had undergone a mutation, and a large number of beasts had gained intelligence and great strength. But he hadn't heard of any beasts that could speak. Could it be that monkeys really were humans' ancient brethren? Was that why they could speak after the mutation? Greetings, senior. Ling Han cupped his fists. He wouldn't pay his respects to a monkey. Puny human, back when I shook the world, countless human geniuses wanted to follow me, but I didn't care about them at all. Now that I've given you a chance to pay your respects, you don't even want it? You're really infuriating. The monkey shouted. The other monkeys all watched from afar, seemingly in awe of this monkey. Ling Han nodded inside. This monkey could even speak, which meant that it had evolved to a very high level. It was no wonder the other monkeys were in awe of it. Chapter 3109. This monkey was quite pitiful. It had clearly mutated, evolved to gain intelligence, and even possessed great power. Yet it was suppressed under the mountain, as if it was trapped in a cage. However, it was not easy to maintain an optimistic heart. Senior's attitude is really good, Ling Han praised. Of course, Old Sun is invincible within the same realm, and he's destined to be invincible under the starry sky in the future. The monkey began to show off again. It was as if it didn't care at all. It didn't realize that it was currently being suppressed. Senior, how should I address you? Ling Han asked. Monkey thought for a moment and shook his head. Since I haven't escaped yet, it would be bad for me to say my real name. Just call me Monkey Sunday. His surname was Monkey, so he was indeed Monkey Sunday. Ling Han chuckled. I'll call you Brother Monkey. This monkey seemed to be very powerful. It would not be a loss to call him Brother Monkey. Monkey Sun raised his head and looked at Ling Han in surprise. Back then his brothers and friends all called him Brother Monkey. Unfortunately, after the chaos, only a few of them were still alive. He suddenly had an idea. Kid, let's become sworn brothers. Become sworn brothers with a monkey. The corners of Ling Han's mouth twitched involuntarily. This felt like a dream. What, you're looking down on Old Sun? The monkey was infuriated, and his eyes shone with a terrifying light. Ling Han hurriedly came back to his senses. This monkey seemed to be very sensitive. Yes, it was in line with the impatient personality of a monkey. It changed its expression very quickly. He smiled and said, How could that be? I was just shocked by this sudden surprise. That's true. Those who are able to become sworn brothers with Old Sun are all amazing people. The monkey immediately laughed again. He really changed very quickly. Ling Han was also a swift and decisive person. He immediately turned around and faced the same direction as Monkey. Then he knelt down and kowtowed. Monkey nodded its head slightly as a form of respect. All right, after the 9 bows, we'll be brothers. Monkey paused and looked at Ling Han. Brother, what's your name? This swearing of brotherhood was really muddle-headed. They didn't even know each other's names. Ling Han replied. Brother, your strength doesn't seem to be that great, Monkey said. He frowned as if he wanted to scratch his ears and cheeks. He was really a passionate person, no, a passionate monkey. He was still being suppressed, but he was anxious for Ling Han. Ling Han nodded. I just started cultivating. What cultivation technique did you cultivate? The monkey asked again. No. Ling Han shook his head. The monkey revealed a surprised expression. He had completely developed intelligence, so his expression was very rich. You don't have a cultivation technique? Don't tell me you're using the most primitive method to cultivate? He looked at Ling Han. Wang. His eyes shone brightly as he looked Ling Han up and down. To think that you've cultivated to the limit. Hiss. Brother, you're really extraordinary. The life force of your fleshly body is extremely strong. No wonder you could cultivate to the limit. The monkey was very happy. He grinned and said, As expected of Old Sun's brother. You have the demeanor of Old Sun back then. Brother, come. Old Sun will teach you this cultivation technique. This was stolen by Old Sun back then. Unfortunately, when I stole it, Old Sun didn't need it anymore. Now it's yours, the monkey said. Ling Han's heart trembled. Cultivation technique? He had always suspected that just using fist techniques to cultivate wasn't the right way. As expected, there was a cultivation technique. Ling Han said, Thank you, Brother Monkey. We're family. There's no need to thank me. The monkey carelessly opened his mouth and spat out golden characters. What? These were meridian drawing pills? Although she was not someone who practiced martial art, she had grown up in the ancient Tao sect. She had naturally heard of the meridian drawing fruit and meridian drawing pill. These things were very expensive, especially the meridian drawing pill. It was even more valuable than the meridian drawing fruit. It cost more than 100 jade seeds, and one jade seed was enough to buy her. Yet, Ling Han had actually given her 3 at once. How could she not be dumbfounded? Young master, I cue you. After a long time, she came back to her senses, but she was still stuttering. Take them. Ling Han nodded. Later, I'll teach you the square fist. After you learn it, take a pill when the sun rises and start practicing. Thank you, young master. Huan Shui was speechless. This kind of surprise almost made her dizzy. At this moment, she was willing to die for Ling Han. In this chaotic world, what was the most important? Power. She didn't know if she could step into martial art, but at the very least, Ling Han had given her a chance. This kind of chance was something that no one else would have given her. Ling Han had taught him the 4-way fist of summoning snow, and after mastering that nameless and unknown cultivation technique, not to mention this simplified version of the 4-way fist, even if it was the real 4-way fist, he wouldn't take it seriously. Of course, if it was used against an enemy, the square fist would still be very useful. Huan Shui wasn't stupid, and her fighting spirit was stimulated. If she couldn't learn it the first time, she would try it a second time, a third time. No matter how sore her hands and feet were, she still gritted her teeth and persevered. It was only when Ling Han told her to stop that she would take a break. After spending a few days, Huan Shui finally learned the square fist, but it was only the stance. There were many details that weren't perfect enough. After another 2 days, she finally completely grasped the square fist. Ling Han broke into a smile. If he managed to nurture a 12-meridian female attendant, wouldn't it give others a huge fright? There are 2 more days until the deadline with Sect Head Sunday. Can I get another meridian drawing fruit? He thought of something else. Right now, his wealth was supported by the meridian drawing pill, but the raw materials for the meridian drawing pill were limited and couldn't be obtained in large quantities. Can I buy them? It should be very difficult. As long as they don't have 12 meridians, everyone will keep the meridian drawing fruit for themselves. You can do it that way. Ling Han's eyes lit up. He had thought of a way, but he had already used up all of the meridian drawing pills. Therefore, he had to take a breather first. Another 2 days passed, and Ling Han had already widened his 4th meridian to the limit. He now had 4,000 kilograms of strength. Normally, a peak 4 meridian cultivator would only have a strength of 3,500 kilograms. However, the higher the realm, the slower the realm. Because the total amount of energy Ling Han absorbed didn't change, the more meridians he had, the harder it was to widen them. Therefore, he needed more jade seeds to set up a spirit-gathering formation to speed up his cultivation. There were also precious fruits that could directly increase his cultivation. He wouldn't turn his back on them no matter how many there were. Along with the explosive increase in strength, Ling Han's constitution also improved. His muscles became more compact, and his bones became much sturdier. Otherwise, even if he could shatter rocks with this punch, his fists would also explode. He realized that this enhancement came from the precious fruits he had eaten in the Monkey Valley. During those 7 days, he had broadened his horizons. The monkeys in the valley had very strong physiques. They wouldn't die even if they fell from a high place. In order to satisfy their appetite, they even hunted a ferocious tiger. They only sent out 3 male baboons. And not only did all of them return, none of them were injured. The strength of their physiques was evident. He had seen this girl's hard work, and it made him very happy. However, Huan Shui's expression immediately became gloomy, and she apologetically said, "Young master, it's all because Huan Shui was too stupid and ate all 3 meridian drawing pills." Ling Han laughed loudly and waved his hand saying, "No problem. Here, I'll give you 3 more. Once you've cultivated 1 meridian to the extreme, you can use it." Young master. Huan Shui was extremely excited. It has to be said that even a genius like Li Zhongdan could only obtain 1 meridian drawing fruit every 2 years. As for her, She had already obtained 6 meridian drawing pills. Meridian drawing pills were much more precious than meridian drawing fruits. She was extremely moved and really wanted to dig out her heart and lungs for Ling Han. Ling Han muttered to himself, "Since you've already sensed a meridian, then report it to the sect, and you can become an official disciple of the sect in the future." In this era, there were very few martial artists who could cultivate, so each one was very precious. As long as one could become a martial artist, then their status would rise by leaps and bounds. A beauty like Huan Shui could be bought with 1 jade seed, but if it was a martial artist, then it might cost 10 jade seeds to ask someone to help. The difference was as great as the sky. Putong. Huan Shui knelt down and continuously kowtowed. "Young master, Huan Shui wants to follow you for a lifetime. Even if Huan Shui dies 100 times, she still won't be able to repay your great kindness." In this world, there was no one who treated her better than Ling Han. Moreover, Ling Han had never asked for anything. This was what truly made her give up. She made up her mind. No matter what happened, she would forever be Ling Han's maidservant. Ling Han smiled and didn't force her. He was once a sovereign, so he naturally had the mentality that matched a sovereign. Since Huan Shui insisted, he naturally wouldn't persuade her. What did this have to do with him? Thinking about it, since he had decided to groom this maidservant, then he would take some responsibility. Ling Han gave Huan Shui a spirit-gathering formation and taught her how to use it. It was very simple. It didn't require any knowledge of formations. As long as the formation base was set up properly and there were enough jade seeds, it would be fine. Huan Shui was naturally extremely moved again. Her tears uncontrollably flowed down. There was only one thought in her mind. If Ling Han encountered danger, she was willing to take his place with her body. Ling Han didn't lack jade seeds at the moment, and he had refined so many meridian drawing pills. It was enough to exchange for a large amount of jade seeds, which could support his cultivation for a very long time. He placed his focus on the demon monkey fist. Every time he practiced this fist technique, he would gain a new understanding. It was as if there was no limit to its power. Chapter 31:13. Ling Han took the invitation. The young man revealed a strange smile and was about to leave. "Wait," Ling Han said. After the young man stopped, he asked, "What's your name?" The young man turned around with a displeased expression. "I'm your senior brother. When you talk to your senior brother, you have to add the word please. Forget it. You just entered the sect, so I won't blame you this time. My surname is Pang Anha." Ling Han ignored him and merely lowered his head to look at the invitation. Damn, Pang Anha felt like he had punched cotton. This kind of disregard made him so angry that he was about to explode. In his anger, he had the urge to attack. However, thinking about how Ling Han was the sect master's favorite disciple, even if he wanted to mess with him, how could he jump out and be the vanguard? Forget it, he wouldn't be happy for long. He waved his hand and left. Huan Shui sent him off. The smile on her face had long disappeared, and she stared angrily at Pang Anha. She wished she had enough power to punch this bastard. He actually dared to be disrespectful to her young master. Just wait, she would remember this. Ling Han didn't care at all. In the past, there were many geniuses who put on airs in front of him, but they were all beaten up by him, until they were mentally retarded. He Miaoyin, the granddaughter of 7th Elder He Guan. No wonder there is so much fanfare on her 18th birthday. He Guan, who entered 10 meridians 20 years ago, and became the last elder of the ancient Dao sect. His current realm is unknown. Although Sun Jianfang treats me well, he has caused many people to be jealous. Inviting me to a banquet at this time, he probably doesn't have any good intentions. Forget it, I'll go take a look. There were still 4 days until He Miaoyin's birthday banquet. Ling Han continued to practice the demon monkey fist while teaching Huan Shui. Although Summon Snow's talent wasn't high, her current cultivation didn't require much talent. As long as she could sense her meridians, all that was left was to hone her skills. Especially the first meridian, it only required 250 kilograms of strength. Huan Shui wasn't a genius, so 250 kilograms of strength was indeed her limit. With the support of the spirit-gathering formation, She completed the first meridian on the third day. After consuming 3 meridian drawing pills, she sensed that her second meridian had been successfully opened and was now in the second meridian. On the fourth day, she already had the strength of 700 Jin, which was simply shocking. Only Ling Han would be able to spend so many resources on a person with no talent at all. One had to know that 6 meridian drawing pills could create a person with 6 meridians. If others knew about this, they would definitely scold Ling Han for being a wastrel. This extravagance was to the point of speechlessness. On the other hand, Ling Han's strength had advanced from 8,000 kilograms to 5,000 kilograms. This advancement was much faster than Summon Snow's. It was comparable to the peak of 6 meridians, and he had only just opened his 5th meridian. He discovered that his physique was rapidly becoming stronger. The precious fruit that he had eaten before should have been completely digested and no longer had any effect. Why was his physique still improving rapidly now? It didn't make sense. He thought for a long time and felt that this was the effect of an unknown cultivation technique. Brother Monkey said that it had many advantages, and strengthening his physique should be one of its functions. However, he couldn't keep calling it an unknown cultivation technique, right? He would call it Brother Monkey's cultivation technique. Ling Han nodded. If the Empress and the others knew about this, they would definitely say that this guy was still incompetent at naming things no matter where he was. Summon Snow, let's go. Seeing that it was getting late, Ling Han waved at the little attendant. Summon Snow can go too. Summon Snow was excited. She didn't have the right to attend events like banquets unless Ling Han held one. In that case, she could attend as a servant, but she would still be doing hard labor. Ling Han nodded. With his protective personality, since Summon Snow was his person, she was more noble than anyone else. Okay, young master. Summon Snow will go change immediately. Summon Snow ran away like a wisp of smoke. The corner of Ling Han's mouth twitched slightly. As expected, as long as one was a woman, they would love to be beautiful. Wasn't it just attending a banquet? Did she need to specially change her clothes? After a while, Huan Shui appeared. She had changed into a clean red dress, and there was a small white bag on her shoulder. Her face was slightly powdered, making her appear even more white and tender. Her vermilion lips were bright and rosy, and her eyes were inconceivably larger. This makeup TSK. Needless to say, if Summon Snow was said to be a 70% beauty, then she was at least an 80% beauty now. This makeup really wasn't done for nothing. Young master. Summon Snow was a little embarrassed. Being stared at by her young master made her a little embarrassed. Let's go. Ling Han smiled and took the lead. Summon Snow hurriedly followed. She didn't dare to walk side by side with Ling Han. Instead, she lagged behind, remembering her duty as an attendant. However, Ling Han stopped when he just stepped out of the door. Young master. Ling Han smiled awkwardly. Where does he meowing live? Summon Snow immediately burst out laughing. This young master was really interesting. She didn't dare to tease him, and quickly pointed the way. The two of them walked. The ancient Dao sect was actually very big. Most of the buildings here had been built after the earthquake, and were products of the previous civilization. However, there were also some that were built in the modern era. They were built in an ancient style, but because they were so new, they could be seen at a glance. After walking for about 20 minutes, they arrived in front of a large courtyard. This was clearly a newly built building, because it was very big. The ancient buildings were all small courtyards, but this one was at least 5 times bigger. The outer walls were all painted very new. There were 2 servants at the door welcoming guests. They were wearing very strange clothes that looked like swallow tails, and had a cloth ring around their necks. Ling Han learned about the civilization 100 years ago from the optical computer. Those clothes were called tuxedos, and they were only worn by high-class families when they hosted banquets. What they wore around their necks was called bow ties, and there was another kind called neckties. They were similar, but they also had a long tail, which was even more strange. There were a great many customers entering, and most of them were in pairs. The men were basically dressed in the same type of Western clothes, while the women were dressed in a wide variety of clothing. Some of them even revealed their fair thighs and backs. And even their breasts were almost half protruding out. This caused Ling Han to be very surprised. The women here were too unrestrained. Ling Han walked over and handed over the invitation. A servant took it and immediately made an inviting gesture. So it's young Master Ling. Please. Ling Han went first, and Summon Snow quickly followed. She was very careful. Although she was already a martial artist, she couldn't change the mentality of a servant in a short period of time. Ha ha ha, this is really funny. Someone actually brought a maid here. A young man immediately laughed. The female companion beside him also covered her mouth and laughed. She seemed very reserved, but the look of disdain she gave Summon Snow was enough to show her attitude. Chapter 31:16. Li Zhongdan, the pride of the heavens. He was only 21 years old, but he had already opened 9 meridians. No one in the ancient Dao sect could match him in reaching 9 meridians at such a young age. He was a man born with a halo, and was destined to shine brightly. If it were not for Ling Han's appearance, he would definitely have been appointed as a Daoist, and inherited the mantle of the ancient Dao sect. He would have obtained the most core inheritance, and reached the pinnacle of his life. Unfortunately, Sun Jianfang had brought back a divine stone that had given birth to a person. This caught him off guard and might have caused his status as a Dao child to fly away. Of course, he was unhappy with Ling Han, but he was very shrewd. In the ancient Dao sect, who would dare to make a move against Sun Jianfang? Thankfully, Ling Han had only just started, and there was still an unknown amount of distance between him and Ling Han. He didn't believe that before Ling Han caught up to him, the elders of the sect would agree to make Ling Han a Dao child. A Dao child represented the next generation of a sect. Of course, they had to make the strongest person with the greatest potential. The changes in this world had just begun, and the path to becoming a celestial was long. They were only at the beginning, so the resources should be used on the most suitable people. Just like him. That was why when he found out that Sun Jianfang had given Ling Han 3 meridian guide fruits, even with Li Zhongdan's shrewdness, he couldn't bear it. It was only because of him that he Miaoyin had invited Ling Han to a banquet. Of course, he had to embarrass Ling Han. It would be best if he could humiliate him so much that he couldn't stay in the ancient Dao sect anymore. At the very least, he had to ruin his reputation. How could he still be a Dao child? Li Zhongdan smiled and said, "Come, junior brother Ling, let me introduce you." He was gentle and elegant like a gentleman, making people involuntarily have a good impression of him. "This is senior brother Rui Yuanliang." He pointed at a young man beside him. This person was about 24 or 25 years old, and had an arrogant expression on his face. It was as if he didn't put Ling Han in his eyes at all. Ling Han nodded and said, "Senior brother Rui." Rui Yuanliang just snorted softly, and raised his chin slightly as a greeting. Ling Han sneered in his heart. "Is it really good for you to be so arrogant? What are you so cocky about?" Senior brother Rui is Elder Qi's son-in-law. His talent in martial art is quite extraordinary. He is now an 8 meridians master, Li Zhongdan added. Rui Yuanliang showed a reserved smile and nodded slightly at Li Zhongdan. "Oh, so you are living off a woman. What is there to be arrogant about?" "This is senior brother Laoli," Li Zhongdan introduced. Ling Han was too lazy to even nod his head. These people all had their eyes on the top of their heads, and they seemed to be either the descendants of the elders or the in-laws. Since they had high statuses, there was no need to be polite to them. "Humph, what arrogance," said Lao Lian unhappily. These people were all too selfish. Didn't they see who was the one who put on airs first? This junior brother is really arrogant. Another man said, "Don't think that you can be so arrogant just because the sect master dotes on you." Ling Han looked at him and asked, "And who are you?" "Tan Gaobua," the man said proudly. "Never heard of you," Ling Han said indifferently, and then turned his face away. "You, Tan Gaobua," and the others were all furious. No matter how much Sun Jianfang looked up to you, you had only entered the martial arts sect for a month. In front of senior brothers like them, you naturally had to be extremely respectful. Moreover, they were the descendants of the elders or the in-laws. Just how high was their status? If you haven't become a Dao child, What right do you have to be arrogant in front of them? Alright. Li Zhongdan waved his hand to stop the conflict from escalating. Junior brother Ling is young and impetuous. Don't blame him. It seemed as if he was speaking up for Ling Han, but it was actually confirming his arrogance and haughtiness, which was equivalent to adding fuel to the fire. Ling Han looked at this young genius from the ancient Dao sect. Although he was young, he was very shrewd. Tan Gaobua and the others were all unhappy, and their gazes toward Ling Han were filled with disgust. In their eyes, Ling Han was just a lucky person. After coming out of the divine stone, he had somehow obtained Sun Jianfang's favor. This was too unfair. They looked at each other, and then revealed cold smiles. They were going to make this brat make a fool of himself, and ruin his reputation. Junior sister, he has come out. At this moment someone said. A woman in red walked out, surrounded by 4 beautiful women. They were all wearing off-the-shoulder dresses. Their shoulders were snow white, and it was possible to see a part of their proud bulge. It was extremely alluring. This caused many men to howl like wolves and shout with all their might. The red-clothed woman was He Miaoyin, today's female lead. She walked to the center of the hall and said a few words before announcing the start of the banquet. She told everyone to eat and have fun. Ling Han had no interest in paying attention to anyone and just sat on the side. Huan Shui was playing the role of a little maid. As long as Ling Han said the word, she would go and bring the food that Ling Han liked to eat. This caused everyone to be extremely envious. By now, everyone had heard about what had happened. Huan Shui had defeated Zhang Baichuan, who had 2 meridians, so she had the strength of at least 2 meridians. In this era, cultivators were the most precious resource. No matter how high or low one's cultivation level was, one's status would be superior to others. However, Huan Shui was actually serving Ling Han like a maidservant, working hard without complaint. How could this not cause others to be envious? The banquet continued, and the atmosphere was very harmonious. There were no more conflicts, which surprised Ling Han. No one came to provoke him. This didn't make sense. He was a person with a halo of hatred. When the banquet was about to end, He Miaoyin returned to her room. However, when she appeared again, her pretty face was covered in frost. The door was immediately closed, and the music stopped. What's going on? What happened? Everyone was curious and asked around. After a while they were all moved. It turned out that He Miaoyin had been robbed. A meridian drawing pill was stolen. It was said that this meridian drawing pill was a coming-of-age gift from He Guan to his granddaughter. Now that it was stolen, He Miaoyin was naturally furious. Now that the door was closed, the meaning was obvious. The thief was among them. Everyone, I'm sorry. We're going to search everyone now. Although everyone was dissatisfied, firstly, the He clan was powerful, and they couldn't afford to offend them. Secondly, they didn't have any guilt in their hearts. Naturally, they didn't mind searching to prove their innocence. Ling Han raised his eyebrows. Could this be a plot against him? When someone came to search him, he didn't object. He just paid close attention to see if the other party took advantage of the search to frame him. To his surprise, he completed the search without a hitch. He thought too much. Found it. A voice sounded. He saw a woman standing beside Huan Shui. There was a bottle in her hand, and there was a pill inside. Chapter 31:17. He Miaoyin had just lost a meridian drawing pill. And then she found a pill bottle on Huan Shui's body. How could there be such a coincidence? She must be the thief. Ling Han frowned. Of course he believed that the little servant girl wasn't the thief. She was obviously trying to shift the blame onto him. He'd miscalculated. He hadn't expected that he wasn't the target, but his servant girl. As the saying went, one had to look at the master before beating a dog. If he interfered, then with the irrefutable evidence, he would be dragged into the mud as well. He might even be identified as the mastermind. But if he didn't do anything, then everyone would look down on him. He couldn't even save his own subordinate. How could such a person be a Taoist? Bullshit. Ling Han looked at Li Zhongdan. Had this cultured and refined person thought of this? He Miaoyin walked over aggressively. She walked in front of Huan Shui, raised her hand, and was about to slap her. But her hand didn't fall. It wasn't because she was soft-hearted, but because there was another person in front of Wuxia. Ling Han. Get lost, He Miaoing said coldly. Ling Han shook his head. She's my servant girl. It's not your place to discipline her. Hiss. Everyone exclaimed in their hearts. Was Ling Han really going to go against He Miaoing for a servant girl? How dare you? He Miaoing sneered. Someone came over and told her about Ling Han's identity. She gave an "oh" and said, "So you're Ling Han. No wonder you dare to be so impudent in front of me. But do you think I'm afraid of you?" Her face was full of arrogance. Now I'm starting to suspect that you're the one who ordered this bitch to steal from me. Now you're trying so hard to protect it, because you want to hide the truth. I didn't steal it, Wuxia said anxiously. You've been caught red-handed. And you still want to deny it? He Miaoing glanced at Wuxia, her face full of disdain. That's right. You've been caught red-handed. How can you deny it? Rui Yuanliang laughed. I really didn't expect junior brother Ling to be such a person, said Lao Lian, directly targeting Ling Han. Hee. Tan Gaobua only moved his lips with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Li Chongdan revealed a pained expression and said, Junior martial brother Ling, how could you be so muddle-headed? He shook his head, but turned to He Miaoing and said, Junior martial sister, can you give me face and let this matter go? I will think of a way to give you a meridian drawing pill. When everyone heard this, there was an uproar, and they felt a strong sense of respect for Li Zhongdan. Look, this was the genius of the ancient Dao sect. Even though it had nothing to do with him, he took charge of this matter and pleaded for Ling Han. In order to absolve Ling Han, he even took on the debt of a meridian drawing pill. It has to be said that he was a 9-meridian cultivator and needed the meridian drawing pill the most. If he had it, he would have used it himself, but now he was willing to give it away for his junior martial brother. How could people not admire him? Senior martial brother Li. Many people called out. It was great to have a senior martial brother like him in the sect. In the future, he would become a giant tree that could protect them and shelter them from the wind and rain. Okay, for senior martial brother Li's sake, I won't pursue this matter any further, said He Miaoing. As He Miaoing spoke, her beautiful eyes swept over Ling Han and Huan Shui, revealing deep disdain and contempt. You guys are really lucky to have senior martial brother Li speak up for you. Otherwise, She was still angry that they had dared to steal from her. Scram, don't let me see you guys again. Ling Han faintly smiled. Li Zhongdan was really good at doing things. Not only did he show how great he was, but he also gave him a blow. He made sure that Ling Han and Huan Shui were in cahoots with each other. This way, no matter how much Sun Jianfang liked Ling Han, how could he have the face to make him a Dao child? Wasn't he afraid of being laughed at to death? Wait, Ling Han waved his hand. He was not someone who would let others bully him. You've wronged him. Haha, don't you guys know that you have a super luck attribute? You guys are really daring. Ling Han shook his head and pointed at the bottle. This is clearly something I gave to my little attendant. When did it become stolen? Is this blatantly stealing from me? Everyone was shocked. What was going on? Normally, even if Ling Han didn't want to accept Li Zhongdan's favor, he should have done his best to deny that he had anything to do with the bottle and the pill. He could even say that he had been framed. However, Ling Han had actually said this. This was completely unexpected. Was he looking for a quick death? Even Li Zhongdan hadn't expected this. This was completely out of his control, and he felt a sense of uneasiness that things might develop in an unknown direction. However, he immediately shook his head. If Ling Han admitted it, then there would be no turning back. I want to see how you're going to court death. He Miaoing was extremely angry. This thief had stolen her things and still dared to hit a target. You thief, you still dare to slander me? Fine. If I don't punish you today, then my name isn't He Miaoing, she said coldly. She was really angered. Ling Han smiled faintly. Since you say that this is stolen, then I want to ask you, how do you prove that this is your pill? Did he still need to prove it? Everyone shook their heads in their hearts. Ling Han's counterattack or quibble was too weak. He Miaoing just said that a meridian drawing pill had been stolen, and now it was found on your attendant. Was there such a coincidence in the world? Let me ask you, what pill is this? He meowing suppressed her anger and asked faintly. Meridian drawing pill, Ling Han said. Since he had been framed, then this pill must be the meridian drawing pill. Everyone nodded. You even admitted it yourself. What else was there to say? Mph. He meowing laughed coldly. She already couldn't be bothered to continue speaking. It was a complete waste of time. Everyone looked at Ling Han, as if they were looking at an idiot. This kind of person could also become a Dao child. What kind of joke was this? If he inherited the position of sect leader, they would only be crushed to death by the rolling wheels of the Great Era. Huan Xue was extremely anxious. If committing suicide could resolve this crisis for Ling Han, she wouldn't hesitate to give up her own life. Ling Han laughed loudly, took out a bottle from his bosom, and said, I still have a meridian leading pill here. Are you going to say that I stole it again? Why did another meridian drawing pill appear? Ling Han took out another pill bottle. If that's not enough, there's another one here. Yes, there's another one. He took out a third pill bottle. The meridian drawing pill was too precious, and it wasn't safe to keep it in the house. Thus, Ling Han kept it close to his body. Everyone was dumbfounded. Was this for real? So many of them were meridian drawing pills. If these meridian drawing pills were all real, then things would be hard to say. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.